Hello, you come to me with a question that has haunted humanity since the very first sunrise. You ask, where is God? You ask with tears in your eyes, with a heart that is heavy with longing. You look up at the sky, you look at the distant stars, you look into the ancient books, hoping to find an address, a map, a sign. You think God is far away. You think there is a great distance between you and the divine, a distance that must be crossed with prayer, with fasting, with struggle, with pilgrimage. I tell you, God is closer than your breath. The problem is not distance. The problem is not that God is hiding. The problem is you. The problem is your attention. You are looking through a telescope at the galaxy, trying to find the one who is holding the telescope. You are looking everywhere except the one place where he can be found. You look up at the sky while the divine waits quietly in your own chest. Let me show you how to see what is already here. In this gathering, I will show you how to stop chasing God like some faraway dream. I will show you how to feel the divine that is already living in you, pulsing in your blood, dancing in your cells. I will show you why your search brings frustration. Have you not felt it? The more you search, the more frustrated you become. The more you pray, the more empty the sky seems. I will show you why your prayers feel unanswered, why your heart feels empty even when your mind is full of scriptures and knowledge. And together we will take a simple, quiet step inward, just one step. That is all that is needed. A step into the center of your being where God has always been waiting. This is not theory. I am not interested in philosophy. Philosophy is a game for fools who love to play with words. I am speaking of existence. This is something you can feel right now as you listen to my voice, as you settle into this moment. You have been told that God is up in the sky, sitting on a golden throne, judging you, watching you. Or you have been told He is in some holy place far away, in Jerusalem, in Mecca, in the Himalayas, or that He is in the hands of priests and books locked away in dead languages that you cannot understand. And because of this, you have spent your life searching outside yourself. You have become a beggar. You stand at the door of existence with a begging bowl, asking for crumbs when the whole kingdom belongs to you. You build longing on top of longing. You create a tower of desire, but you never realize that the distance you feel, that painful, aching gap between you and the divine, is created by the search itself. The search is the problem. Most people try to find God the same way they try to find success or money or power or romantic love. They chase, they run, they compete, they hope, they fear. They doubt, they think it is an object to be attained, but God is not an object. God is not a something you can grab and put in your pocket. God is not a reward for good behavior. God is not a medal you win at the end of a marathon. God is the silence behind your thoughts. God is the warmth that appears in your chest when you stop running. God is the pause between your inhalation and your exhalation. And once you understand this, your whole search changes. It undergoes a radical transformation. You stop looking out and you start looking in. The eyes that were focused on the world suddenly turn backward, inward, toward the source of seeing itself. And something deep begins to open. A flower that has been tight in a bud for millions of years suddenly begins to bloom. In this communion we share, I will take you step by step into the real path of finding God. We will explore why your mind makes the search harder than it needs to be. The mind is a mechanism of complexity. It loves puzzles. But God is not a puzzle. God is a mystery. Yes, but not a puzzle. A puzzle has a solution. A mystery has no solution. It can only be lived. We will look at why you feel blocked, even when you pray with a true heart. Why does it feel like there is a wall? Why does it feel like your words just bounce off the ceiling? We will see how fear creates distance, and how a single shift in awareness, just a small click in your consciousness, brings the divine close again. It was never far, you were just asleep. I will show you how silence becomes a doorway, not the silence of the graveyard, but a living, throbbing silence. How love becomes a guide, and how the simple act of watching your breath can bring you to the space where God has always lived. And later I will reveal something that surprises many seekers. It shocks them. It goes against everything they have been taught in Sunday schools and temples. The moment you stop trying to find God, God finds you. When you come to me with this question of God, when you sit before me with a heart full of longing and a mind full of confusion, I see something beautiful in you that you may not yet see in yourself. You see your confusion, I see your potential. You see your darkness, I see the spark that is trying to become a flame, because the very fact that you ask, the very fact that you search, the very fact that you feel this deep pull towards something greater, this magnetic attraction to the unknown, shows that the divine has already begun to move inside you. If God were not already in you, you could not miss Him. You only miss what you have known. You only long for what is part of you. A fish does not long for the sky. It longs for the ocean. You long for God because you are God, but you have forgotten. The trouble is that you have been taught to look in the wrong direction. Society, culture, education, they all give you eyes that look outward. They teach you to focus on objects, on money, on people, on reputation, and the more you search outward, the farther away the truth seems to move. It is like a horizon. You see the horizon, it looks so beautiful, the place where the earth meets the sky. You walk toward it, you walk for miles, but the horizon also moves back. You can never reach the horizon because it is an illusion. The God you are looking for outside is just a horizon. And this is why so many seekers feel tired. Look at the religious people of the world, they look exhausted. They look burdened. They do not look like they are dancing, they look like they are carrying a mountain on their shoulders. They feel lost, disappointed. They spend their entire life looking for God in temples made of stone, in rituals that have lost their meaning, in books written by people who never knew God themselves. They never realize that the distance they feel is created by the search itself, because God is not out there waiting to be found like some hidden treasure, like gold buried in the ground. God is the silence behind your own heartbeat. Listen to it. Right now, in this gap between my words, that silence, that is the voice of God. It is the space behind your own thoughts. It is the warmth that touches you when you stop trying so hard to understand everything. The mind wants to understand. The heart simply knows. Here's something most people completely miss. And if this enters you, if this seed falls into your heart today, your whole path will shift. You cannot find God outside, because God has never lived outside. The divine is not an object. The divine is not a place. The divine is not a destination at the end of some long and difficult journey. The divine is your own inner presence. The awareness that is hearing these words right now, Who is that? Who is listening? Who is feeling? That awareness, that consciousness that is witnessing this moment, that is the divine. The stillness you touch when you close your eyes, the softness that appears in your chest when you stop running. But because people do not know this, they keep pushing the divine farther and farther away. They imagine God as some distant being up in the sky, a grandfather figure with a long white beard sitting on a cloud. It is childish. It is a toy for children. Or they think he is hidden in scriptures, in difficult Sanskrit or Latin verses, when in truth the divine sits quietly in the center of your being, waiting for you to turn inward. Imagine a man searching frantically for his glasses. He is in a panic. I cannot see, he cries. He is looking under the bed, opening drawers, checking every corner of the house. He is throwing things around, becoming frustrated, even angry. He blames his wife, he blames his children, he blames the world. Who has stolen my glasses? Until finally, someone calm, someone who can see, points out that the glasses are sitting right on his head. He was looking through them to search for them. He had them the whole time. They never left him. In the same way, God has never left you. How can God leave you? God is your very existence. If God leaves you, you will cease to be. You will disappear like a shadow when the light is gone. The divine has been with you, in you, as you from the beginning. Before you were born, God was with you. After you die, God will be with you. But because your eyes are turned outward, because your gaze is fixed on the world of things, you cannot see what rests so close to your own awareness. And the more desperately you search outward, the more your inner world becomes clouded, because the mind creates images, the mind creates expectations. God must look like this, God must feel like that. The mind creates beliefs, and these ideas become fog on the window through which you try to see the divine. They distort reality, they make something very near appear very far. If you are enjoying this journey into the truth of your own being, I invite you to join our community. There is a button below, it says join. When you click it, you take a step closer to this work. You help this message reach more seekers who are lost in the fog. It is a small gesture, but it signifies a commitment to your own awakening. What I am about to share might seem counterintuitive at first. The logic of the mystics is not the logic of the mathematician. It is the logic of love. It is the key to the entire spiritual journey. The longing you feel for God is proof that God is already within you. Please understand this. Let it sink deep. Longing does not arise for something you do not know. How can you miss someone you have never met? How can you crave a food you have never tasted? Longing is memory. Longing is recognition. Somewhere deep in the recesses of your soul you remember. You remember the home you left. You remember the bliss you once knew. Longing is the soul whispering to you, come home. And even though the mind interprets this as searching for something outside, because the mind only knows the outside, the truth is that the longing is pointing you inward. It is calling you into yourself. A thirsty traveler may search the desert for water. He sees mirages. He runs toward them and finds only hot sand. But if he is standing next to a deep well and does not look down, he will die of thirst with water at his feet. Humanity is dying of spiritual thirst. Look at the faces of people in the street. They are thirsty. Their eyes are dry. Their hearts are parched. They are dying of thirst, while the well of the divine waits within the heart. And as this understanding begins to take root in you, you will feel something subtle shift inside, a kind of relaxing, a soft exhale. The tension of the search begins to drop, because now you don't need to chase, you don't need to run to India or to Tibet, you don't need to reach for something beyond your grasp. All you need to do is turn inward. Take one small step toward your own being, and a door begins to open, a door you have walked past your entire life, a door you never even noticed because you were too busy looking at the shop windows of the world. And once you stop searching outward, once you allow your gaze to turn inward, something strange begins to happen. You begin to feel a presence, a warmth, a quietness that does not come from the world. The world is noisy. This quietness is not of the world. This is where the real journey begins. Before this, you were just wandering. Now you are a pilgrim. This is where the path shifts from effort to effortless, from searching to seeing, from longing to meeting. And to understand why this inner shift is so important, we must look more closely at the greatest barrier on the path, the mind itself, the creator of distance, the maker of separation, the painter of illusions. If you find value in this silence we are sharing, consider using the super thanks button. It is a way to give energy back to the source that nourishes you. It helps us keep this lamp burning for others. For unless you understand how the mind pushes God away, you will never see how close the divine truly is. The mind is a brilliant mechanism for survival, but it is a terrible master for the spirit. When you begin to turn inward, when your search stops racing toward the sky and starts falling softly back into your own being, like a leaf falling from a tree effortlessly, the very first thing you meet is the mind. And this meeting can feel confusing because the mind has spent your whole life teaching you that God is far away. It has been the priest, the politician, the teacher. It has told you that truth is somewhere else. Not here, says the mind. Truth is in the future. Truth is in the next life. Truth is in heaven. The mind always postpones. It tells you that enlightenment belongs only to saints and monks and people who live in caves or mountains, special people, not ordinary people like you. The mind whispers to you, not here, not now, not you. You are not worthy, you are a sinner, you are flawed. And because you have listened to the mind for so long, it has been your constant companion, chattering 24 hours a day. You believe it. You have become hypnotized by your own mind, but the mind is not trying to protect you from God. The mind is trying to protect itself, because if you find the divine within, the mind loses its throne. The mind is an ego trip. It wants to be the boss. If you find the silence within, the noise of the mind becomes irrelevant. Its control, its constant noise, its demands, they all dissolve in the presence of the divine. So the mind does the only thing it can do to survive. It creates distance. It paints God as a distant star. Keep looking, it says, but never find. Because if you find, the search ends. And if the search ends, the mind is no longer needed. The mind feeds on problems. It starves on solutions. So you will never think to look inside the lamp of your own heart. Here's something most people completely miss. The mind cannot meet God. It is impossible. It is like trying to hear music with your eyes or trying to see light with your ears. The instrument is wrong. The mind is a tool for dividing, for analyzing. To analyze means to break things into pieces. God is wholeness, how can you fit the whole into the part? The mind cannot hold the vastness of the divine. It is a teacup trying to hold the ocean, so it turns God into an idea, a concept, a theology, a belief, something it can talk about without ever experiencing. The mind loves to talk about water, but it will not let you drink. And once God becomes an idea, the mind feels safe again, because ideas can be controlled, ideas can be measured, ideas can be discussed, debated, argued over. Men fight wars over ideas of God. Have you ever seen two men fighting over the experience of silence? No, they fight over the word, the book, the concept. Ideas cannot break you open, they keep you closed. And this is why the mind builds images of God instead of allowing you to taste God directly, because a direct experience of the divine would dissolve the mind like sunlight dissolves fog. So the mind keeps God at a distance, not because God is distant, but because the mind is terrified of closeness. The mind is afraid of intimacy. Intimacy means death to the ego. Think of fog on a window. When the glass is covered with mist, the world outside looks far away, distorted, unreachable. You cannot see the trees clearly, they look like ghosts. You may think the fog belongs to the world itself, that the world has disappeared, but the fog is on your side of the window. This is how the mind works. The divine looks far away, not because God is distant, but because your thoughts are clouding your inner vision. Your prejudices, your opinions, your knowledge, it is all dust on the mirror. When thought slows just for a moment, and it can happen in a moment of great beauty or great danger or great love, the fog thins. And when the fog thins, the closeness becomes undeniable. You begin to feel something alive behind the noise, something spacious, something warm, something that has been waiting for you long before you learned how to pray. What I am about to say may shock you. It goes against all your religious training, but if it sinks into your heart, everything changes. Every time you think about God, you are moving farther from God. Thought creates separation. Thought divides the subject from the object. Thought says me and God, here and there, now and someday. But the divine does not live in these divisions. The divine is the glue that holds everything together. The divine is presence itself. And presence cannot be reached by thinking harder. You cannot think your way to God. You cannot pray harder to get there. You cannot study more books or try to believe with more intensity. Belief is just a poor substitute for knowing. A blind man believes in light. A man with eyes sees it. I want you to see, not to believe. Presence appears when the mind loosens its grip, when the inner noise softens, when you relax into the moment as it is without chasing anything beyond it, when you stop trying to be somewhere else, when you are totally here. And this is the beautiful paradox of awakening. The moment you stop trying, you begin to feel the divine. The moment you stop searching, something inside you opens. The moment you stop forcing your mind to understand, the heart begins to see. Suddenly, what felt far becomes near. What felt hidden becomes obvious. What felt like the greatest mystery of life becomes the most intimate reality of your own being. It is no longer a mystery, it is a fact. Let me give you a picture so your heart can understand this more deeply. The heart thinks in pictures, in feelings. The mind thinks in words. Imagine standing before a pond early in the morning. If the wind is strong, the water ripples, it is agitated. You look into the water and you cannot see your reflection. You see only fragmented colors, dancing shapes. You cannot say, "This is me." But when the wind settles, when the air becomes still, the water becomes clear, it becomes a mirror. And in that clarity, your own face appears. The pond did not need to learn anything new. It did not need to go to a university. It did not need to practice yoga. It only needed stillness. In the same way, your awareness becomes clear when thought settles, when the wind of the mind stops blowing, and in that clarity the divine reflection appears, not as something separate from you, not as a face in the sky, but as your own deepest nature. You realize, "I am that." But the mind, afraid of this stillness, afraid of this closeness, tries to pull you back. It panics. It throws a stone into the pond. It tries to fill your head with questions. How do I find God? What is the right path? Am I doing it wrong? Why don't I feel anything yet? Is Osho right? Is the Bible right? And each question ripples the water. Each question pulls you away from the direct experience and back into thought. This is why seekers get trapped in study, in dogma, in endless spiritual searching. They are shopping for God in the supermarket of religion. They are looking through the eyes of the mind instead of the eyes of the heart. And no matter how much the mind learns, it can never bring you closer to the divine, because the mind is the creator of distance, not the bridge that closes it. And yet, once you see this clearly, not just intellectually but existentially, once you recognize how the mind plays its game, how it creates illusions of distance and separation, something inside you begins to soften. You stop fighting, you stop struggling, you stop believing every thought that passes through your head. You realize that thoughts are just like clouds passing in the sky. You are the sky, not the clouds. You stop letting the mind define God for you. You stop chasing ideas and start watching the space between ideas. One thought passes, then a small gap, then another thought comes. In that gap, in that interval, is God. And in that space, a space the mind cannot enter, you begin to feel the presence directly. This is the beginning of true seeking. This is the beginning of real closeness. And now that you see how the mind pushes God away, you are ready for the deeper truth, the truth the mind fears the most. You are not separate from the divine. You are not a seeker trying to find something lost. You cannot find what you already are. And to understand this, we must look even deeper into the nature of the seeker and the sought. When you begin to see how the mind creates distance, how it paints God as something far away, unreachable, living somewhere beyond the stars, you also begin to sense the deeper truth that has been quietly pulsing beneath your search from the very beginning. You are not separate from what you seek, and you never have been. The whole idea of finding God is built on a misunderstanding so deep and so old that almost everyone carries it without even noticing. It is the original sin, not eating an apple but forgetting who you are. Because the moment you believe God is somewhere outside you, the moment you imagine the divine as something to be reached, something to be discovered, something to be earned through hard work, you step out of your own being, you leave your home and begin chasing your own shadow. If this message is resonating with your soul, do not forget to subscribe to our channel. It is free, but it connects you to a stream of consciousness that can change your life. And share this video with someone you love, someone who is also tired of searching. The seeker chasing God is like a wave searching for the ocean. Imagine a wave rising high, looking around, asking, "Where is the ocean? I have heard so much about it. It is vast, it is deep, it is powerful. Where is it? It is beautiful, it is sincere, but it is unnecessary, because the wave is already made of the ocean. It is already held by the ocean. It is already nothing but the ocean in a temporary form. The wave is the ocean waving. Here's something most people completely miss. The seeker and the sought are not two. They have never been two. The very force that makes you long for truth is the truth calling you home. The longing you feel in your heart is not a sign of separation. It is not a sign that you are empty. It is the divine moving inside you like a magnet pulling you toward your own center. You think you are searching for God, but it is God searching through you. God is playing hide and seek with Himself. He hides in you and then He looks for Himself through your eyes. He is trying to bring your awareness back to where it truly belongs. And because you do not understand this, you look outward for answers, hoping some teacher, some temple, some book will reveal the divine to you, when in truth, the only one who can reveal God to you is yourself. No one else can do it for you. I cannot give you God. I can only wake you up so you can see what you already have. Imagine this scene. A wave rises in the ocean and suddenly becomes curious. It feels an ache, a longing, a pull, and it begins to ask, "Where is the ocean? Where should I look? Which direction should I travel to find it? Should I go east? Should I go west?" And no matter which way the wave moves, no matter how far it travels, it cannot find the ocean because it is already inside the ocean. It cannot make the ocean an object of its vision because it is the subject, already made of the ocean, already the ocean expressing itself in motion. If the wave could just fall still for a moment, if it could stop racing across the surface of the water, it would feel the immense body beneath it, supporting it, carrying it, giving it life. It would realize, I am not the wave, I am the water. In the same way, if you stop chasing for even a moment, if you stop stretching outward, reaching outward, hoping outward, if you stop begging, you will feel the vastness within you, the presence that has been holding you since the beginning. What I am about to share might soften something deep inside you. You do not need to become anything to find God. You do not need to purify yourself. You do not need to fix yourself. You are not broken. You do not need to change yourself or transcend yourself. You only need to return to yourself. You only need to lay down the layers of noise, of identity, of fear, of belief, of expectation that cover your natural state. These are just clothes you are wearing, they are not you. And what remains, the silent awareness beneath it all, is the divine. God is not a peak you climb. God is the ground you stand on. God is the space in which you breathe. God is the awareness that hears these words. And when you begin to taste this truth, not as an idea but as a felt experience, a sensation that ripples through your skin and settles in your bones, something remarkable happens. The search becomes lighter. The burden of seeking lifts from your shoulders. You have been carrying a backpack full of rocks labeled religion, duty, guilt, future. and suddenly you realize you can just set it down. The anxiety of how do I get there dissolves because you start to understand that there is no there is only here, there is only now. There is only this presence, this being, this awareness. And this awareness is not yours to own. It is not personal property. It is the divine wearing your form, looking through your eyes, feeling through your heart. Let me give you another image, one that may settle into your heart in a soft and gentle way. Imagine sunlight is streaming through a window. The light touches everything in the room, the table, the chair, the dust motes dancing in the air. It warms the room, illuminates it, gives it life. Without the light, the room is dead. Now imagine searching for the sunbeam while ignoring the sun itself. This is what happens when you look for God outside. You look for the reflection, the echo, the symbol. You look for the miracle, but you miss the source of the miracle. You look for the gift, but you forget the giver. The light you seek is the light by which you see. The truth you chase is the truth that is listening right now. And when this realization begins to grow inside you, when you start to sense that the divine is not an experience you will one day have after 40 years of meditation, but the essence of who you already are, the search shifts. It stops being a race. It stops being a desperate climb up a mountain of holiness. It becomes a melting, a softening, a coming home. You stop trying to find God like an object and begin to feel God as the very ground of your being. You stop trying to understand with the mind, which is a limited instrument, and begin to see with awareness. You stop trying to reach upward toward a heaven that does not exist in the clouds and begin to sink inward into the heaven that exists in your center. And in this sinking inward, in this deep relaxation into your own presence, you encounter something that changes everything. Silence. Not the silence of the outer world. Not the silence of a library where people are just suppressing their noise. Not the silence of the night when the traffic stops. That is just the absence of sound. I am speaking of the inner silence that appears when the chase ends, when the seeker dissolves, when you simply rest in your own being without trying to change anything, without trying to be better, without trying to be holy, just being. And this silence is not empty, it is not a negative state, it is not a void, it is a doorway, it is the door through which the divine reveals itself to you, not as a distant power, thunder and lightning, but as the very essence of your awareness. And once this truth begins to settle, once the wave remembers its ocean, once the seeker realizes it was never separate from what it sought, the whole journey turns inward, into the depths of silence, into the space where God waits without waiting. To understand this silence, to truly meet it, we must step deeper. Because silence is not just quiet, it is alive. When you finally begin to sense that the divine is not somewhere outside your reach, but is quietly living within you, when you understand even a little that the seeker and the sought are not two, something inside you begins to slow down. The frantic energy of your life begins to settle, and in this settling a new space appears, a space so gentle, so delicate, so easy to overlook that most people miss it their entire lives. They miss it because they are addicted to noise, they are addicted to their own thoughts. They are afraid that if they stop thinking, they will cease to exist. But I tell you, when you stop thinking, you truly begin to exist for the first time. This space is silence. This silence is the door. Every step you have taken on your path, every question you have asked, every tear you have shed in longing has been leading you to this doorway, the doorway where the mind falls quiet and the presence of God becomes unmistakably close. Here's something most people completely miss. Silence is not the absence of noise. Silence is the presence of yourself. The world can be loud or quiet, day or night, chaotic or peaceful. It does not matter. The market can be full of shouting, the traffic can be roaring, but the silence I speak about does not depend on the outer world. It is the inner world becoming still enough for you to hear the truth that has always been speaking beneath your thoughts. This silence is like a lake at dawn. When the wind stops, the water becomes clear, and only then can you see the reflection of the sky. In the same way, when the thoughts stop stirring the surface of your mind, you begin to see the reflection of the divine resting inside your own being. If these words are touching a chord in your heart, if you feel this silence I am speaking of, I invite you to click the like button. It is a small act, but it tells the universe, yes, I am ready for silence. I am ready to listen. What I am about to share might sound simple, but it carries the power to transform your entire search. God is found in the space between your thoughts. Watch your mind. A thought comes, and then it goes, and before the next thought comes, there is a tiny gap, a microsecond of pure space. In that space, there is no you, no me, no past, no future. There is only awareness, only presence. In that gap, God is not far. God is not hidden. God is here as the very light of your awareness. But the mind is always speaking, always moving, always demanding your attention. It rushes to fill the gap. It is afraid of the gap. And so this quiet light is overlooked. When the mind becomes quiet for even a single moment, when you fall into the space between two thoughts, you fall into the divine. Imagine monks waking before dawn, sitting in silence in a cold monastery. They are not doing this because they want to control the mind. They are not doing this to punish themselves. They are doing it because the silence itself is their temple. They are not seeking God through words or rituals, but through the delicate stillness where everything falls away except pure presence. In that stillness, the divine reveals itself, not as an object you can see with your eyes, not as a voice you can hear with your ears, not as an image painted on a wall, but as a felt knowing, a deep warmth, a soft expansion, a sense that you are melting into something vast and intimate at the same time. This is the silence I speak of, the silence that opens the door. And when you taste this silence even briefly, you begin to realize that all the noise you carried inside, your worries about money, your fears about death, your beliefs about who you are, your endless thinking was never a barrier outside of you. God did not put a wall between you and Him. You built the wall brick by brick, thought by thought. It was the barrier within you. You were standing at the door the whole time, but the sound of your own thoughts kept you from hearing the divine call. When the noise quiets, the call becomes unmistakable. And that call is not in words. It is in presence. It is in a feeling of home. Let me give you a picture. Imagine finishing a long, busy day. You have been working, talking, arguing, rushing. Your mind is filled with noise, with the dust of the marketplace. And finally you come home. You lock the door. You sit down in a quiet room. For the first time all day you hear your own breath. You feel your own heartbeat, you feel a weight dropping from your shoulders that you didn't even know you were carrying. That moment of quiet is not just rest, it is a return. In that brief moment, you feel yourself again. You remember who you are. Now imagine that same quiet but deeper, deeper than the body, deeper than the emotions, softer, more complete. A quiet where not only the world pauses, but your inner world pauses too. The mind stops spinning its wheels. That deeper quiet is the doorway to God. And when this silence begins to reveal itself, something beautiful happens inside you. You start to trust the inner space more than the outer noise. You start to trust your own being more than the opinions of others. You start to feel at home in yourself. You start to sense that the divine is not found in effort, but in ease, not in striving, but in surrender, not in movement, but in stillness. And once this trust begins to grow, you are ready to learn the most delicate part of this journey, how to listen within, how to hear the voice of truth that speaks only in silence. When you finally step through the doorway of silence, even for a moment, you discover something unexpected. The silence is not quiet at all. It is full, it is rich, it is pregnant with meaning. It is alive with a kind of gentle communication that does not come in words, does not come in thoughts, does not come in any language the mind can grasp. And this is where the real challenge begins for many seekers, because they expect God to speak the way the world speaks. They want a burning bush. They want a loud voice from the clouds saying, do this, do that. Loud, direct, unmistakable. Yet the divine speaks in a much softer way, in a way the mind cannot hear, but the heart cannot miss. To hear the divine, you must learn to listen within, not with your ears. Your ears are for the birds, for the wind, for the traffic, not with your thoughts. Your thoughts are just echoes of the past, but with your whole being, like a flower opening to sunlight without needing instructions. The flower does not ask, is this the sun? It knows. It opens. Here's something most people completely miss. Inner listening is not about trying harder, it is about softening deeper. The mind wants to strain, it wants to reach, it wants to force something to happen. It demands answers. Give me a sign, it shouts. But the heart knows a different way. The heart listens by becoming still, by becoming receptive, by becoming a womb, by allowing whatever arises to arise without judgment. And this kind of listening is frightening at first. I warn you, it takes courage, because when you turn inward, you do not only meet the divine. First you meet yourself, you meet your garbage, you meet your fears, you meet your memories, your pain, your longing, your forgotten dreams. You meet all the things you have pushed into the basement of your subconscious. And most people turn away right at this threshold. They say, this is not God, this is just my own mess. They think this cannot be the way to God. This is too uncomfortable, this is too raw. But the discomfort is only the surface layer. It is like clouds covering the sun. If you run away from the clouds, you will never see the sun. If you stay, if you listen, if you simply watch the clouds without judging them, they begin to part. Let me give you another picture to help your heart understand this. Imagine a locked room filled with darkness. For years you stood outside pushing on the door, knocking until your knuckles bled, begging it to open. Please, God, let me in. You lit candles, you prayed, you sacrificed, you searched for keys, You tried to break the door down with your logic and your theology, but one day you simply stop pushing. You are exhausted. You surrender. You sit down. You become still. And in this stillness, you notice something. There was never a lock on the door. It was always open. It opens inwards. By pushing, you were keeping it closed. It only needed you to stop struggling long enough to see that you could walk through. Stillness is that moment. The door to the divine has always been open. God has never closed the door on you. You simply needed to become quiet enough to see it. And the beautiful irony is this: the moment you stop trying to find God, God enters. The moment you stop reaching outward, the divine rises inward. The moment you stop forcing your mind to understand, a deeper understanding appears all by itself. This is why stillness is a sacred meeting place. Not because stillness calls God. God is not a dog you can call with a whistle, but because stillness reveals that God was already there. If you are ready to stop pushing the door and simply enter, consider becoming a member of this channel. Click the join button below. It is a way to walk this path with others who are also learning the art of stillness. Let us gather the essence of what has unfolded here. You now see that God is not some distant presence in the sky, not a reward to be earned, not a mystery hidden behind rituals or beliefs. God is your own awareness, clear, open, silent. God is your own heart, soft, vulnerable, loving. God is the stillness that rises when thought loosens its grip. God is the warmth that opens inside you when you stop running from yourself. God is the quiet guidance that appears when you sit with presence instead of chasing answers. And because you now see this, because you have tasted this truth even for a moment, the entire nature of your spiritual path changes. You no longer look outward with desperate longing. You look inward with quiet confidence. You no longer chase the divine. You allow the divine to meet you in the space you create through silence, awareness, and love. What I want you to understand with your whole being is this: the search is not a path outward, it is a path inward. And every step you take inward brings you closer to the truth that God lives in you, moves through you, breathes through you. And when this truth touches your heart, something inside you softens in a way that cannot be reversed. You cannot unknow this. You begin to live with a new tenderness, a new clarity, a new depth, because you are no longer trying to become spiritual. You are no longer acting a role. You are simply allowing your true nature to shine. You begin to trust yourself not as an ego, not as a personality, but as a channel through which the divine expresses itself uniquely. Your life becomes lighter, even in difficult moments. Your relationships become deeper, even when they challenge you. Your presence becomes warmer, even towards strangers. And this change does not come from effort, it comes from recognition. Let me offer you one final picture for this part of our journey, something your being can carry long after these words fade. Imagine a small candle placed inside a dark room. At first, the room seems immense, overwhelming, filled with shadows. It looks scary. But when you light the candle, the darkness shrinks. Not because you fought it, not because you took a sword to the darkness, not because you forced it out, but because the candle simply was what it is. Light does not need to push, it illuminates. And you are that candle. The divine light within you grows not through struggle, not through perfection, not through trying to be holy, but through being true, through being present, through being open. When you live in this way, the darkness of your life, the fear, the confusion, the pain begins to soften and shrink. Not because life becomes perfect, but because you are no longer facing it alone. The divine is with you, as you, through you. So let this truth settle in your heart. When you stop searching far away, God walks out from within you. When you stop believing you are separate, the divine embraces you from the inside. When you stop running from the silence reveals itself as home. And now we must address the shadow. We must address the thing that keeps you running. We must address the fear that keeps you from looking inside. All your life, you have been running from a ghost. You call it evil. You hide from it. You fight it. You build walls against it. You create armies to destroy it. But the ghost was created by your own mind. Let me show you the truth behind it, and you will never fear again. In this next part of our communion, I will show you something simple but life-changing. Evil is not a power outside you. Listen to me carefully. Evil is not a competitor to God. Evil is not a Satan fighting against the divine. Evil is only the absence of awareness. It is the absence of understanding. It is the absence of love. When you see this clearly, fear breaks, guilt melts, shame falls away. The chains you have carried for years disappear. You will learn why fear creates evil, why misunderstanding feeds it, and why awareness dissolves it without effort. You will see how your mind built enemies from shadows, how society used fear to control you. Because a frightened man is easy to control, a fearless man is impossible to enslave. I will guide you step by step, gently into a new way of seeing, a way that removes fear, removes inner conflict, and opens you to peace. When we finish, you will not look at the world the same way. You will not look at yourself the same way. Something deep will shift. I know how many of you live with fear. I feel it. I see it in your aura. Fear of people, fear of darkness, fear of your own thoughts, fear of something unseen that you call evil. You feel watched by some force. You feel guilty for your own anger. You feel ashamed of your shadow. You fear making mistakes because you were told evil waits in the cracks of your mind. Be careful, they said, or the devil will catch you. But all this fear has hurt you. It has made your heart small. A fearful heart shrinks. It has made your mind tense. It has made your life heavy. No one told you the truth. Evil is not a thing. Evil is only your own misunderstanding wearing a dark mask. Evil is only the absence of understanding, and absence disappears the moment awareness enters. What I shared here is not about religion. Religion is organized fear. I am not speaking of morality. Morality is a set of rules given by blind people to other blind people. I am speaking about seeing. Once you see clearly, the whole idea of evil breaks like thin glass and you feel light again. I will show you what evil really is and how the world has taught you to fear something that does not exist as a force. You will learn how evil grows from unconsciousness, from sleep, from confusion, and how the moment you bring awareness, the darkness dissolves on its own. We will explore how fear creates shadows, how guilt creates pain, how the mind creates enemies from its own wounds. And then we will go deeper into how to wake up, how to see your shadow with gentle eyes, how to transform what you once feared into understanding, into compassion, into freedom. Some things I say will challenge what you were taught. Some may shock you. Good. You need to be shocked. You have been sleeping too long. You need a cold bucket of water thrown on your face. Some may feel like a truth you always knew but never had words for. Do not rush. Do not resist. Let each insight open slowly inside you. By the end, you will walk differently in the world. You will feel safer, you will feel clearer, and you will know a freedom that cannot be taken away. You have carried fear for so long that you believe it is part of you. You think evil is a force outside waiting in the shadows, watching you, trying to pull you down. But I say to you, here is something most people never see because they never look deeply. Evil is not a force. Evil is only your own misunderstanding wearing a dark mask. You have been taught to fear something that has no life of its own. You have been told since childhood, beware, evil is out there. You have heard stories, warnings, threats. You have seen images of darkness and shadows and demons. And little by little, all these ideas gather inside your mind like dust in a corner. And because no one taught you how to look at your own mind, our education system teaches you about geography, history, mathematics, but never about your own mind. You believed the dust was a monster. You believed the shadow was an enemy. You believed the darkness had power. But what I share with you now may feel strange at first. Darkness is not a thing. Darkness is only the absence of light. Think about it. Can you bring a bucket of darkness into this room? No. Can you push darkness out of the room? No. But you can bring a candle and the darkness is gone. It has no substance. It has no strength. It cannot harm you. The moment you bring even a small flame, the darkness disappears. You do not fight it, you do not push it, you do not argue with it. You do not even need to think about it. Darkness dissolves the moment you see. This is the key. Evil appears powerful only when you don't look directly at it. When you are afraid, your imagination grows wild. It turns a small shadow into a giant. It turns a tiny movement into a threat. It fills the unknown with danger. Fear exaggerates everything. Fear makes the small look large and the harmless look dangerous. Imagine a child in their bed at night. They see a shape in the corner, a coat hanging on a chair, but in the dark, in the fear, the mind turns the coat into a monster. The child sees eyes, he sees claws, he sees movement. The heart beats fast, the body freezes. The child hides under the blanket, trembling, sweating. But when the mother comes and turns on the light, the monster disappears. Where did it go? Did it run away? Did it hide? No, it was never there. It was a projection of fear. The coat is just a coat. Not because it was defeated, not because it was fought, but because it was never real. Fear created it, and seeing dissolved it. The same happens inside you. You walk through life with fears you never question. You believe in enemies you never examine. You see darkness in others because you have not understood the shadows inside yourself. Humans project their own wounds onto the world. Whatever part of yourself you reject, whatever part you are ashamed of, you see as evil in someone else. Whatever you do not understand in your own heart becomes a danger in your mind. And here is a truth that may feel like a shock. Most of what you call evil is just unconsciousness. It is people acting without awareness. It is people acting without understanding. It is people acting without seeing the consequences of their actions. It is not a force attacking you. It is not a demon whispering inside someone's mind. It is a person asleep, a person in pain, a person reacting from old wounds, old conditioning, old fears. Think of a sleepwalker moving through a room. They bump into a table, they knock over a vase, they push open a door, they may even hurt someone without meaning to. They might step on your foot. But would you call the sleepwalker evil? Would you put him in prison? Would you say he is a sinner? No, you would say he is asleep. They are simply not awake. They do not see what they are doing. They do not know where they are. Their actions come from sleep, not from intention. This is what unconsciousness is. And unconsciousness is the real source of what people call evil. If you are beginning to see the world differently through these words, consider using the super thanks feature. It is a beautiful way to express your gratitude and support this channel's mission to wake up the world. What I want you to feel right now is this: when you stop believing in a dark force, when you stop imagining an enemy outside you, something inside you relaxes. A weight drops from your chest. A breath becomes easier. Because deep down, you always sensed something wasn't right about the stories you were told. Deep down, you knew fear was shaping your world more than truth. And once you see the illusion, once you see that evil is not a force but a misunderstanding, then the next question appears like a soft whisper inside your heart. If evil is not a force, where does this illusion come from? Let us walk into that next doorway together. And now we step deeper. Because once you see that evil is not a real force, once you see that it is only a misunderstanding, something inside you begins to loosen. But this loosening brings a new question, a very important one. If evil is not real, if it is not a force, then why does it feel so strong? Why does it look so real? Why is there so much war, so much violence, so much cruelty? Why does it feel so close? Why does it feel like it can touch you at any moment? And the answer is simple, but you must hear it with a quiet heart. Fear creates evil. Fear gives shape to shadows. Fear gives life to illusions. Fear makes the unreal feel real. Fear is the oldest companion of the human mind. It comes from deep inside, from your biology, from the days when a small sound in the dark meant danger, when a rustle in the bushes meant a tiger, when survival depended on being alert to threats. But life has changed. We are no longer living in the jungle. The dangers outside have become fewer, but the fear inside remains. It is like a computer program that is still running even though it is no longer needed. And when the mind cannot find real danger, it begins to invent it. The mind needs an object for its fear. If there is no tiger outside, it will create a tiger inside. The mind paints its own monsters on the walls of your imagination. It turns uncertainty into threat. It turns confusion into a dark shape. It turns your own shadow into an enemy. Fear distorts your perception. It is a lens that twists everything you see. It makes ordinary things look frightening. It magnifies the unknown. It makes you see things that are not there. Think of a thick fog covering a familiar road. You know this road. You have walked it 1,000 times in the sunlight. But now the fog has descended. Trees you know suddenly look strange. A rock looks like a crouched figure waiting to attack. A stick looks like a snake ready to strike. The fog does not change the world. The tree is still a tree. The rock is still a rock. But the fog changes your ability to see it. Fear is this fog. It covers your inner world so completely that you mistake your own projections for reality. Inside fear, you lose clarity. Inside fear, you lose understanding. Inside fear, you lose the ability to see the humanity in others. You become so focused on protecting yourself, the ego is always defensive, that you forget to look with awareness. You forget to breathe. You forget to question. You forget to see. When fear takes over, the mind becomes wild. It acts like a frightened animal. It begins to connect dots that are not connected. It begins to create stories to explain the unknown. And because fear grows fast, the stories become dark. This is how the illusion of evil is born. Not from truth, but from the mind, trying to protect itself. Let me give you a picture. Imagine you are walking alone at night. The street is empty. You hear footsteps behind you. Click, clack, click, clack. Your mind jumps. Someone is following me, it says. You walk faster. The footsteps seem to get closer. Your breath quickens. Your heart pounds against your ribs like a drum. You are ready to fight or to run. You are in a state of absolute terror. But when you turn around to face your enemy, you see it was only your own echo bouncing off the buildings. Fear created the threat. Fear created the story. Fear created the illusion of danger that never existed. And this is what happens inside you. Again and again you hear an inner sound, a thought, a memory, a desire, a shadow. And before you look at it with awareness, fear starts running. Fear says, this is dangerous. Fear says, this is evil. Fear says, hide, fight, escape. And because you believe fear, you have been taught to trust your fear more than your heart. The illusion becomes real to you. You start battling ghosts. You start defending yourself against shadows. You start running from parts of your own mind. If you know someone who is running from their own shadows, share this video with them. Sometimes a single shared truth can stop the running. Fear also blinds you to the humanity of others. This is the great tragedy of our world. When you are afraid, you stop seeing people as people. You see them as threats. You see them as objects. You see them as potential harm. And when you see someone as a threat, your heart closes. It slams shut like a steel door. Your compassion disappears. Your awareness shrinks to a tiny point of survival. You act from instinct, not understanding. And this is how fear creates the very harm it tries to prevent. Not because people are evil, but because fear makes them blind. Fear spreads like a shadow. One fearful person creates fear in another. One fearful thought creates 100 more. Fear is contagious because it relies on imagination, not reality. It jumps from mind to mind like a spark in dry grass. But here is the beauty. Fear cannot survive in awareness. When you look directly at what you fear, the illusion breaks, the shadow shrinks, the monster disappears. Because the truth is simple, fear lives only in the places where you do not look. And when fear takes over, unconsciousness spreads like a shadow covering your inner world until you forget the simple truth that no one ever taught you. Evil does not come from a force outside you, it comes from sleep inside you. And this brings us to the next doorway, the real source behind all harmful action, unconsciousness. The deepest sleep of the human mind. Let us walk there now. Now that you see how fear paints shadows on the walls of your inner world, now that you understand how the mind creates danger where there is none, we can go to the very root of what people call evil. And this root is not darkness. It is not a demon with horns. It is not a force hiding in the corners of the world. The real source is far simpler and far sadder. it is unconsciousness, it is sleep. It is the moment when a human being forgets to be aware. When awareness is absent, everything becomes possible. Confusion, anger, violence, cruelty, hatred, harm. Not because the person is evil, but because they are asleep. Most of the pain in the world does not come from bad people. There are very few bad people, but there are millions of asleep people. It comes from people who are not awake to their own inner world, people who do not see their own wounds, people who do not understand their own fear, people who act out of old hurts, old beliefs, old conditioning, people who react instead of respond, people who are driven by impulses they did not choose, thoughts they did not question, habits they did not examine, and because they are asleep, they bump into others, they hurt others, they repeat the same patterns again and again, not out of intention, but out of blindness. Think of a sleepwalker wandering through a room. His eyes are open, but he sees nothing. He knocks over a lamp. He walks into a table. He spills water. He breaks something fragile. He may even push someone by accident, but you would never look at the sleepwalker and say, "This person is evil." You would not judge him. You would understand he is not aware of his actions. You would understand he is moving without seeing. You would understand the harm he causes is not born from hatred but from sleep. This is what unconsciousness is. And this is how almost all harm in the world happens, through sleep, not evil. An unconscious person is driven by fear because they cannot see the truth behind it. An unconscious person is driven by anger because they cannot see the wound beneath it. An unconscious person is driven by desire because they cannot see the emptiness it tries to fill. An unconscious person is driven by conditioning because they cannot see that the thoughts they believe are borrowed. They are like robots programmed by society, acting out a script they did not write. This is why unconsciousness becomes the soil where harm grows, not because darkness is strong, but because awareness is absent. Think of a child who is so lost in their emotions that they strike another child. The moment you understand that the child is overwhelmed, confused, unable to express what they feel, compassion rises. You see their pain, you see their limitation, you see that what they need is guidance, not punishment. Adults are the same. Only their bodies are bigger. Only their actions look bigger. Their toys are more dangerous. They have guns, they have bombs, they have money. But inside they are the same overwhelmed children. A person who lies is often protecting a fear. A person who screams is often hiding a wound. A person who judges is often guarding shame. A person who hurts others is often hurting inside. When someone is unconscious, their pain leaks into their behavior, and the world, instead of seeing the wound, sees evil. But I say to you, once you see the wound, the illusion of evil breaks. The saddest part is this: pain passes from one unconscious person to another like a chain being handed forward. A parent's unhealed wound becomes the child's fear. The child grows into an adult with the same wound. That adult passes it to others, to their spouses, to their children, and so the cycle continues. Not because anyone is evil, but because no one is awake enough to break the chain. No one has stopped to say, "Wait, I will not pass this on. I will wake up." Once you understand unconsciousness, compassion begins to rise. Not pity, pity is superior, but compassion. A deep understanding that transforms your relationship with the world. You stop seeing enemies and start seeing sleepers. You stop seeing evil and start seeing suffering. You stop seeing darkness and start seeing the absence of light. And this understanding does something powerful inside you. It frees you, it releases fear, it softens hatred, it dissolves judgment, because you realize that the moment awareness enters, even the most harmful pattern can break, even the deepest wound can heal, even the hardest heart can open. If you wish to be part of a community that is choosing to wake up, choosing to break the chain of unconsciousness, click the join button, support this work, and support your own awakening. And once you understand unconsciousness, compassion begins to rise, because now you know the truth. People do not act from evil, they act from sleep. And when sleep ends, the illusion ends. This leads us to the most liberating part of this section. Why awareness ends what you call evil, without any fight, without any struggle, without any force at all. Let us go there now. Now we stand at a very important doorway. We have seen how fear creates shadows, how the mind paints illusions, how unconsciousness, simple sleep, becomes the soil in which harm grows. And now something beautiful becomes possible, something that many people never discover in their entire lives. The understanding that awareness itself ends what you call evil, not discipline, not punishment, not war, not guilt. Awareness, just the simple light of seeing. I say to you, awareness is like a flame. Even a small flame can light up a dark room. You don't need to push the darkness away. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to bring a sword to kill the darkness. You don't need to shout at it, pray over it, or struggle with it. Darkness has no strength of its own. It cannot resist. It cannot argue. It cannot say, I refuse to leave. The moment light enters, darkness is gone. It simply ceases to be. This is how evil disappears, not through force, but through understanding. When you bring awareness to a thought, the thought loses its power. It loses its grip on you. When you bring awareness to a feeling, the feeling softens. When you bring awareness to an old wound, the wound begins to heal. When you bring awareness to harmful behavior, the behavior cannot continue. Awareness interrupts the pattern. It stops unconsciousness in its tracks. It wakes you up in the middle of the dream. Suddenly you see what you are doing. You see why you are doing it. You see how it affects you and others. And the moment you see, the spell breaks. The same action that looked normal a moment ago suddenly looks absurd. The same impulse that felt strong a moment ago becomes weak. The same fear that felt huge becomes small. Think of someone about to break something in anger. In the moment of rage, they feel powerful. Their whole body tightens. Their breath becomes short. Their vision narrows. They are ready to destroy. But if in that exact moment awareness comes, even a small spark, just a moment of witnessing, the person suddenly sees themselves. They see their own hand raised, they see the tension in their body, they see the fear behind the anger, they see the absurdity of hurting something or someone when the real pain is inside. The moment this seeing happens, the arm drops, the breath softens, the storm breaks, not because the person forced themselves to be calm, that is suppression, that is dangerous, but because awareness dissolved the trance. Awareness is not effort, awareness is not control, awareness is not willpower, It is a simple turning of attention inward, a quiet recognition of what is true in this moment. And truth has its own power. Truth cleans, truth clears, truth heals, not through pressure but through presence. Let me give you a picture. Imagine walking down a hallway in the dark. You bump into furniture, you stumble, you hit your knee. You feel frightened because you cannot see what is around you. You imagine shapes, you imagine dangers, but the moment you turn on the light, everything changes. The furniture is still there, the hallway is the same, but now you navigate freely, safely, calmly. The dangers disappear, not because the world changed, but because your awareness changed. This is how life works. This is how healing works. This is how evil dissolves. Most harmful behavior happens in darkness, the darkness of the mind, the darkness of pain, the darkness of conditioning. People hurt themselves because they cannot see their own worth. People hurt others because they cannot see their own fear. People act unconsciously because no one taught them to look inside. But the moment awareness enters, even the deepest pattern can shift. Awareness makes you responsible, not in the sense of guilt, but in the sense of seeing clearly. Responsibility, the ability to respond. When you see clearly, you naturally choose a different path. You naturally stop hurting yourself. You naturally stop passing your pain to others. You naturally start walking with more softness, more presence, more truth. Awareness does not fight evil. Awareness reveals there was nothing to fight, and this is why awareness ends evil the way morning ends night. Effortlessly, simply, naturally. Now that you have seen the illusion for what it is, now that you understand where harm really comes from, you are ready to go deeper, because once you realize evil is a misunderstanding, the next step becomes clear. If the outside world is not the danger, then the real work is inside, in the places you have avoided, in the parts of you you have rejected, in the shadow you have been afraid to meet. Now we move into that deeper territory, the shadow within you. Let us walk there gently. Now we move into the part of the journey that most people avoid for their entire lives. They look outside for danger. They search the world for evil. They point to others and say, "There, that is the darkness, that politician, that country, that religion, that is the evil." But the real shadows are never outside. The real shadow lives inside you, in the corners you never visit, in the feelings you never allow, in the memories you never touch, in the truths you were taught to hide even from yourself. And I say to you, this is where the greatest freedom waits, not outside, not in the world, but inside your own being. Here is something most people completely miss. What you call evil outside is usually your own rejected self inside. All the parts of you that were not welcomed, not understood, not accepted, not allowed, those parts were pushed into the dark, and anything pushed into the dark becomes frightening, not because it is dangerous, but because you cannot see it. Every child is born whole. Look at a baby, soft, open, full of many colors. They have no shadow. They are pure essence. But very early the world begins to divide them. This is good, this is bad, this is allowed, this is forbidden, this is strong, this is weak, this is beautiful, this is shameful. The child, wanting love, wanting safety, wanting to belong, starts to hide pieces of themselves. They realize, if I am angry, mother does not love me, so I must hide my anger. If I cry, father says I am weak, so I must hide my tears. They push down their anger. They hide their sadness. They bury their fear. They silence their desires. They pretend to be the version of themselves that the world approves of. And in this pretending, a shadow is born. Your shadow is made of your rejected qualities. The parts of yourself you are told should not exist. Your anger became a threat. Your tears became weakness. Your curiosity became rebellion. Your passion became danger. Your sensitivity became a flaw. Your strength became a burden. And because no one taught you how to hold these parts with love, you pushed them far, far into the dark, into the basement. But what goes into the dark does not disappear. It waits. It waits for years. It waits for decades. It waits until you are finally ready to turn toward it. When you ignore your shadow, it grows stronger. It does not die. It becomes louder in your dreams. It becomes heavier in your body. It becomes sharper in your reactions. It becomes a whisper inside your mind saying, "Look at me, please look at me." But because you were taught to fear it, you do not look. You keep the door closed. You keep the basement locked. You live only in the top rooms of your own inner house, the living room where you receive guests, the rooms that look neat, bright, presentable, but I say to you, the locked rooms hold your power. The shadow holds your strength. The very parts of yourself you pushed away contain the energy you have been missing. Imagine a child tapping softly on a door, wanting to be let in. The longer you ignore the child, the louder they knock. They cry, they push, they scream, and because you do not understand, you fear the sound. You call it evil, you call it dark, you call it dangerous. But it is only a child, a part of you asking to come home. This is why meeting the shadow is liberation. When you open the door to the parts of yourself you have feared, you discover they are not monsters. They are wounded, they are confused, they are lonely, they are tender. They need your presence, not your fear. They need your attention, not your avoidance. They need your compassion, not your judgment. And when you meet your shadow gently, something magical happens inside you. A softening, a light, a warmth. You feel more whole because you are no longer divided against yourself. The civil war inside you ends. You feel stronger because the energy you used to spend hiding is now free. You feel lighter because you no longer carry the weight of pretending. And once you hear the shadow knocking, once you see it is not danger but a forgotten part of your own heart, another truth opens, a deeper truth that shows you the real source of what you once called evil, the pain you suppress. Let us walk into that next truth. If you are finding courage in these words to face your own shadow, please show your support by clicking Super Thanks. Your contribution helps us guide others into their own light. Now that you have begun to see the shadow within you, now that you understand it is not a monster but a forgotten part of your own being, we can step into one of the most misunderstood truths about human life. The pain you suppress becomes what you later call evil. Not because the pain is dangerous, not because it is dark, not because it has any intention to harm you or anyone else, but because anything you refuse to feel will find another way to be felt. Anything you hide will push from the inside. Anything you bury will rise again, seeking expression, seeking air, seeking light. Pain does not disappear when ignored. It transforms, it mutates. Sadness becomes bitterness. Fear becomes control. Shame becomes aggression. Anger becomes violence toward yourself or others. Loneliness becomes resentment. Confusion becomes judgment. wounds become walls. All of this happens because you were never taught to feel. You were taught to hide. You were taught to push away whatever felt heavy. Don't cry, they said. Be a man. Don't be sad, they said. Smile. You were taught to stay positive, stay strong, stay quiet, stay composed. And in doing so, you pushed your pain deeper into the dark spaces of your being. But what goes into the dark does not die, it grows. Pain demands expression. Pain wants to move. Pain wants to be acknowledged. Pain wants to be released. When you suppress pain, it does not vanish. It simply loses its path. It no longer knows how to move through you naturally. So it begins to leak into your thoughts, your actions, your relationships. You think you are angry at someone, but you are angry because your own heart has been waiting for you. You think someone else hurt you, but the wound was already there, they just touched it. You think the world is unsafe, but it is your own unprocessed fear that fills the world with danger. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a pressure cooker on a stove. The heat rises, the pressure builds inside. Something wants to release, but the lid is locked tight. There is no outlet, no opening, no space for movement. The pressure continues to rise until the pot shakes, rattles, strains, and if nothing is released, the pot eventually explodes. This is what happens inside you when you suppress pain. The pressure grows, the emotion builds, and because it cannot find a healthy way out, it finds an unhealthy way out, a harsh word, a sudden rage, a cold withdrawal, a destructive habit, a quiet self-hatred, a resentment that does not match the moment. These are the explosions of suppressed pain. Not evil, not darkness, not sin, just pain with nowhere to go. This is why people hurt each other. They are carrying pressure. They never learn to release. This is why people attack themselves. They are filled with emotions. They were never allowed to feel. This is why people call others evil. They see in others the pain they have denied in themselves. And here is the beautiful truth. The moment you allow yourself to feel your pain even a little, even for one breath, the pressure begins to drop. The storm begins to calm. The shadow begins to soften. Pain is transformed not by force, not by suppression, not by punishment, but by presence. When you sit with your pain, it becomes compassion. When you breathe with your pain, it becomes understanding. When you hold your pain with love, it becomes love. And this is why awareness is so powerful. It turns what you once feared into something sacred. It turns your wounds into wisdom. It turns your heaviness into strength. It turns your darkness into light. And under the pain, something else hides, something more subtle, more slippery, more deeply rooted than fear or anger or sadness. Something that keeps the shadow alive even when you want to heal. Something that locks the door from the inside. This something is shame. Let us walk there next with care. Now we step into one of the deepest layers of the human heart. A layer so painful, so hidden, that most people never look at it directly. They can face fear. Fear is natural. They can face anger. Anger has energy. They can even face grief. But shame is different. Shame is the quiet weight inside you that tells you there is something wrong with you. Not that you did something wrong, that is guilt. Guilt says, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am a mistake. Shame is the voice that whispers, you are not enough. Not because of what you did, but because of who you think you are. Shame is the lock on the door of your shadow. Shame is the prison where the most tender parts of you have been kept in silence. Shame is not born inside you. No child is born ashamed. Have you ever seen a baby ashamed of its body? Ashamed of its laughter? Ashamed of its tears? No, it is impossible. Shame is given to you. It is a gift from a sick society. And because you were too young to question it, you accepted it as truth. A look from a parent, a harsh word, a punishment you did not understand, a moment of being scolded for simply being yourself, a rejection when you needed comfort, a laugh when you needed safety. Slowly, quietly, shame took root. It whispered, "Hide this part of you. Do not show this. Do not feel that. Do not be this." And every time you obeyed shame, another piece of you slipped into the dark. Shame splits you in two: the self you show, the public face, the mask, the smile, and the self you hide, the self you fear others will see, the self you perform, and the self you punish. This split is the beginning of inner conflict. It is the beginning of schizophrenia. Not in the medical sense, but in the spiritual sense. You are divided against yourself. You are at war with your own nature. It is the beginning of fear. It is the beginning of self-rejection. And where there is self-rejection, there is pain. And where there is pain, there is the potential for harm. Not because you are evil, but because you are divided. Shame creates secrecy. It tells you, do not speak. It tells you, if anyone knew this about you, if they knew your thoughts, your desires, your past, they would turn away. They would leave you. It tells you, you must hide this or you will not be loved. And so you hide. You become a master of hiding. You hide your anger behind a fake smile. You hide your sadness behind busy work. You hide your confusion behind certainty. You hide your desires behind morality. You hide your wounds behind toughness. And everything that is hidden becomes distorted. Everything that is hidden becomes a shadow. Everything that is hidden becomes something you fear. If you are ready to stop hiding and start living, click the like button. Let it be a signal to yourself that you are done with secrecy. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a deep crack in the ground of your house. It is wide, frightening, and you do not want to see it. It makes you feel unsafe. So you place a beautiful rug over it. A Persian rug, very expensive, very thick. From the outside, the floor looks perfect, clean, smooth, whole. Guests come and say, "What a beautiful house." You smile, but inside you are trembling. You know what is under the rug. The crack is still there. The ground is still unstable. And because no one can see it, no one can help you repair it. In time, the crack grows wider. The floor begins to shift. Things placed on the surface begin to tilt and fall. You try to hold them up, but the foundation is weak. This is what shame does. It hides the wound so well that it cannot heal. And because it cannot heal, it continues to shape your life from underneath. Shame blocks healing because shame blocks visibility. You cannot heal what you cannot see. You cannot integrate what you keep in the dark. You cannot love what you believe is unlovable. Shame tells you that the hidden part of you is the dangerous part. But I say to you, it is the hiding that creates danger, not the part itself. Once you bring that hidden part into awareness, once you look at it with compassion instead of judgment, once you allow it to be seen, the illusion of danger melts. The crack closes, the wound breathes, the shadow softens. Shame also feeds the idea of evil. This is important to understand. When you believe there is something wrong with you, something broken, something unworthy, something dark, you cannot bear that feeling alone. It is too heavy, so you project this darkness onto the world. You vomit it out. You see in others what you fear in yourself. You judge them because you judge yourself. You reject them because you have rejected parts of your own being. You attack them because you are attacking yourself constantly. This is how shame becomes the root of the illusion, the root of the idea that evil is something real, something outside, something to be feared. But when shame dissolves, the world changes. You stop seeing enemies. You stop seeing danger everywhere. You stop seeing darkness where there is only misunderstanding. And most importantly, when shame dissolves, your shadow becomes your teacher, not your enemy, not your prison, not your fear, but your guide. Your shadow shows you your unmet needs. Your shadow shows you your buried strength. Your shadow shows you your forgotten gifts. Your shadow shows you where your heart is waiting for you. And this leads us to the next truth, one of the most liberating truths you will ever discover. When you no longer fear your shadow, it becomes a source of clarity, courage, and awakening. It becomes something precious not to hide, but to learn from, to integrate, to love. But when shame dissolves, the shadow becomes your teacher. And this is where we go next. Now that shame has been brought into the light, and shame hates the light, it dies in the light. Now that you can see how it locked pieces of you away and called them dangerous, we can enter a new and beautiful stage of the journey. The moment when the shadow stops being something you fear and becomes something you learn from. This is the moment many people spend their whole lives running from. The moment they avoid through distraction, through alcohol, through entertainment, through pretending, through masks and lies and endless busyness. But I say to you, when you finally turn toward your shadow with open eyes and an open heart, something inside you shifts so deeply that the whole idea of evil begins to dissolve. Because the shadow, when seen, is not darkness, it is depth, it is potential, it is the forgotten part of your own wholeness, returning home. The shadow is your inner teacher, but only after you stop treating it as an enemy. It holds the pieces of you that were pushed away, and within those pieces lies your power. The world told you that your anger was dangerous. Don't be angry, they said, but your anger contains your boundaries. It contains your no, and without a no, your yes means nothing. It contains your courage, your clarity. Anger, when purified by awareness, becomes a sword that cuts through lies. The world told you that your sadness was weakness, but your sadness contains your empathy, your softness, your humanity. A man who cannot cry is a stone. A man who cannot feel sadness cannot feel joy. They are two sides of the same coin. The world told you your desires were shameful. Desire is sin, they said. But your desires contain your vitality, your creativity, your direction. Your life force flows through desire. If you cut off desire, you cut off life. The world told you your sensitivity was a flaw. You are too sensitive, they said. But your sensitivity contains your intuition, your compassion, your ability to feel the world in ways others cannot. It is your antenna to the divine. What you rejected became your shadow. But what you rejected was also what made you whole. When you walk into your shadow, you are really walking into the basement of your own being, a room full of boxes, each box labeled "Do not touch, dangerous, poison." But when you open them with awareness, not with fear, you find not monsters, not curses, not evil. You find lost treasures, gifts that went unused, strengths that went unnoticed, feelings that were never understood. Imagine entering a dark cave that you have feared all your life. The stories say there are beasts inside. The stories say there is danger. The stories say you will not return the same. And perhaps the stories are true, but not in the way they were told. You will not return the same because you will be reborn. When you step inside slowly with awareness, with presence, with breath, you see the walls shimmering with gold. You see crystals reflecting the light of your lantern. You see that the fear came not from what was inside the cave, but from the fact that no one ever took you there before. This is what happens when you meet your shadow. You discover that the fear you carried was a misunderstanding. You discover that the darkness you imagined was only the absence of attention. You discover that the parts of yourself you thought were bad were actually wounded, waiting patiently for your return. And when you learn from your shadow, it gives you clarity. It shows you what you truly need. It shows you where you have been false. It shows you where you have abandoned yourself to please others. It shows you where you have been living from fear instead of truth. Your shadow also shows you your patterns, not to shame you, but to free you. You see how old wounds shaped your reactions. You see how childhood beliefs shaped your perceptions. You see how unprocessed pain shaped your choices. You see how fear shaped your behavior. And the moment you see, you stop being controlled by these patterns. Awareness breaks the chain. Awareness opens the cage. Awareness gives you a new direction. If you want to deepen your understanding of these hidden patterns, I recommend looking at our collection of books. There is a link below to our bookshop. Reading is a way to water the seeds of awareness we are planting here today. When the shadow becomes your guide, you return to yourself. You stop fighting your inner world. You stop running from your truth. You stop fearing parts of yourself that were never meant to be feared. You become more whole. You become more grounded. You become more compassionate. You become more awake. And from this wholeness, from this clear seeing, you gain the ability to look at the world in a new way, with new eyes, with new understanding. Because once you have faced your own shadow, the shadows of others no longer frighten you. You see their pain, you see their sleep, you see their conditioning, you see their humanity. And with this new clarity, the journey naturally shifts from the inner world to the outer world, from your personal shadow to the shadow of the collective. Now that you have seen your own darkness with awareness, you can finally understand how the world creates the illusion of evil on a much larger scale. Now we can look at how society, culture, and collective fear spread shadows through entire communities, entire nations, entire generations, and we walk there next. Now that you have seen your own shadow with gentle eyes, now that you understand how individuals fall into darkness, not from evil, but from sleep, we can lift our gaze to something larger, the collective shadow. The world itself, as you know it, is full of systems, rules, beliefs, and traditions that were created long before you were born, and most of these systems were built by people who were unconscious, afraid, conditioned, and searching for control. This is why the world creates evil even when it believes it is doing good. This is why entire societies act in destructive ways without realizing it. This is why harm is passed down generation after generation. Not because people are bad, but because conditioning is blind. Here is something most people never question. Morality is often taught without awareness. People are told what is right and what is wrong before they have the maturity to understand their own hearts. They are handed rules like heavy stones and told to carry them forever. They are punished for questioning, they are rewarded for obedience, and slowly they stop thinking for themselves. They stop feeling, they stop seeing clearly. They follow blindly because they were raised in blindness. Conditioned morality is dangerous because it replaces awareness with obedience. It teaches people to follow rules, not truth. It teaches people to fear punishment, not understand their actions. It teaches people to act from habit, not from presence. It teaches people to judge others, not see their humanity. When morality is taught without awareness, it becomes cruelty dressed as virtue. People hurt others believing they are righteous. People exclude others believing they are pure. People suppress their own humanity believing it is sinful. People use a language of goodness to justify harm. Let me give you a picture. Imagine a child being told by an adult to punish another child for their own good. The child does not understand. They do not question. They do not see the humanity of the other child. They only know authority told them to act, and so the harm is done not from their own heart but from the conditioning placed upon their heart. This is what happens across cultures, across ages, across religions, across governments. People become instruments of morality without awareness, and in this blindness, great harm is done. When people act from conditioned morality, they stop seeing the person in front of them. They see only labels: sinner, outsider, enemy, wrongdoer, threat. These labels are the seeds of division. They allow people to hurt others without feeling the pain they cause. They create distance, they create justification, they create numbness. This is one of the greatest illusions of evil, the belief that harming someone is for the greater good. But I say to you, anything done without awareness becomes dangerous. No matter how noble it looks on the surface, a knife in the hands of someone asleep is more dangerous than a weapon in the hands of someone awake. A moral rule in the mind of someone unconscious can create more harm than an immoral act born from confusion. And once you see this, you begin to understand that the world's idea of evil is upside down. The person who breaks a rule out of pain is seen as evil, while the person who enforces the rule without awareness is seen as righteous. The person who behaves destructively because of trauma is condemned, while the person who harms from a place of blind obedience is praised. This is why collective harm continues, because it is rewarded, not questioned. And when morality becomes fear, division appears. You begin to see people not as mirrors of yourself, but as others. You forget that every person was once a child who learned to hide their pain. You forget that every person carries a shadow shaped by shame. You forget that every person is searching for acceptance, for love, for safety, and this forgetting is the beginning of separation, the root of all conflict, the seed of everything you later call evil. Once people begin to separate themselves from others, once they begin to imagine us and them, fear grows, suspicion grows, judgment grows, and this brings us to the next layer of the collective shadow, the fear of the other, the fear of difference, the fear of anything that does not fit the conditioned image of what is good and right. Let us walk deeper into this next truth. Now that we have opened the truth about conditioned morality, Now that you see how blindly following rules can turn into harm without anyone noticing, we can move into one of the most powerful forces behind the illusion of evil, the fear of the other. This fear has shaped history, it has shaped nations, it has shaped families, it has shaped relationships, it has shaped the inner world of almost every human being who has ever lived. And yet, when you look closely, you will see something astonishing. The other does not exist. It is an invention of the frightened mind. This fear begins early. A child looks at someone who behaves differently, speaks differently, looks differently, or believes differently. And if the adults around them react with suspicion or rejection, the child absorbs that reaction without understanding. They learn to fear difference. They learn to distrust what they do not recognize. They learn to label anyone outside their group as dangerous, inferior, or wrong. The child does not question this fear because it was handed to them by authority, by culture, by history. And so the chain continues. The fear of the other is the root of conflict. It is the root of prejudice. It is the root of war. It is the root of hatred. It is the root of separation in every form. And when separation grows, compassion dies. When compassion dies, awareness closes. And when awareness closes, unconsciousness rises. The same unconsciousness that you now understand as the real source of all harm. This is why the fear of the other is so powerful. It blinds you not only to the truth outside, but to the truth inside. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two mirrors facing each other in a dark room. Each one reflects only the shadows cast by the other. Each mirror believes the shadow it sees belongs to the other mirror. Each mirror reacts to the darkness it perceives. But the darkness is not coming from the other mirror. It is coming from the absence of light in the room. This is how humans behave with one another. They project their own shadows onto others and then fear what they see. When you fear someone else, you are really fearing a part of yourself, a part you pushed away, a part you judged, a part you never learned to understand. And because this part remains hidden, you cannot see the person in front of you clearly. You see only the outlines, only the projections, only the stories you inherited from those who came before you. Fear of the other creates illusions that feel real. You see danger where there is none. You see threat where there is only difference. You see shadows where there is only misunderstanding. And because the mind is quick to protect itself, it reacts, it builds walls, it creates distance, it refuses to listen, it refuses to question, it refuses to see that the person you fear has their own pain, their own wounds, their own dreams, their own tenderness, just like you. This fear of the other grows into systems, cultural, religious, political, social. These systems then reinforce the fear, shaping entire generations. Nations declare enemies, groups isolate themselves, families pass down suspicions like heirlooms, and the illusion grows stronger, deeper, heavier. But underneath all of this, the truth remains untouched, the truth that there is no other. If you want to be part of the solution, if you want to help dissolve this illusion of separation, please subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you join a global family of seekers who are looking past the fear of the other. There is only one life expressing itself in many forms, one ocean waving in many waves, one light shining through many windows. When you realize this, the fear of the other collapses, and with it the illusion of evil collapses too, because how can you hate your own reflection? How can you fear your own self? We are coming to the end of our time together, but the journey is just beginning. In the final part of our communion, I will show you how to integrate all of this, how to take these truths about God, about the shadow, about evil, and live them in your daily life. I will show you how to wake up from the collective dream, how to be in the world but not of it, how to walk through the fire of unconsciousness without getting burned. This is the most important part, because understanding is not enough. You must live it, and to live it, you must become a rebel. Not a rebel against society, that is just politics, but a rebel against your own unconsciousness, a rebel against your own sleep. This is the most important part of our communion. How do we wake up from this collective dream? How do we stop the wheel of karma, the wheel of unconsciousness, the wheel of fear that has been turning for centuries? It starts with a radical shift in your daily life. It starts with the understanding that you are not the doer, you are the watcher. Most people live their lives glued to the screen of their minds. They are like people in a movie theater who have forgotten that there is a projector, who have forgotten that there is a screen, and who believe that the movie is real. They cry when the hero dies. They scream when the monster appears. They are lost in the drama. But the spiritual seeker, the true seeker of God, is the one who turns around in his seat and looks at the projector. He sees the beam of light. He sees that it is just a play of light and shadow. He does not leave the theater. He enjoys the show, but he knows it is a show. This is what I call the witness sakshin. The moment you become a witness, the heavy becomes light, the serious becomes playful, the tragedy becomes a comedy, and the evil is seen for what it is, a bad script played by unconscious actors. Let us go deeper into this art of witnessing, because this is the only key that unlocks the door we spoke of earlier. How do you do it? You ask me, Osho, how do I witness? My mind is so loud, my emotions are so strong. I tell you, start with the small things. Do not start with your biggest trauma. You will fail. Start with your body. When you are walking, know that you are walking. It sounds simple, but you have never done it. When you walk, your mind is in the office or in the past or in the future. You are not walking, the body is walking like a robot. Bring your attention back. Feel the contact of your feet on the ground. Feel the air on your face. Feel the movement of your legs. Suddenly the quality of your walk changes. You are no longer rushing toward a destination. You are enjoying the journey. The destination disappears. The walk itself becomes the goal. And when the walk becomes the goal, you are in the present moment. And where is God? God is in the present moment. God is the present moment. Then move to your emotions. This is harder. When anger comes, the old habit is to become angry. You say, I am angry. This is a lie. You are not angry. Anger is happening to you. It is a cloud passing through your sky. The witness says, I see anger passing. I see the heat rising in the body. I see the hands shaking. I see the thoughts of violence arising. You watch it like a scientist watching an experiment. You do not judge it. You do not say anger is bad. If you say it is bad, you suppress it and it goes into the shadow. You do not say anger is good. If you say it is good, you act on it and hurt someone. You simply say anger is, and a miracle happens. I promise you this miracle. If you can watch your anger without judgment, without identification, just pure watching, the anger cannot survive. It is like a fire without fuel. It flares up, it dances for a moment, and then poof, it disappears. And what is left behind? A profound silence, a silence that is not empty, but full of vitality. The energy that was trapped in the anger is released, and it becomes compassion. This is the alchemy of awareness. You do not need to cut off your emotions. You need to transform them. Base metal becomes gold. Poison becomes nectar. But the world has taught you to indulge or to repress. Both are traps. Both keep you asleep. The witness is the third way, the way of the mystic. If you are finding value in these practical keys to awakening, please consider using the super thanks button below. Your support allows us to keep sharing these tools with the world that is desperate for them. Now let us look at the mind. The mind is the greatest trickster. It is a lawyer. It will argue for its own limitations. It will tell you this witnessing is too hard. You are not ready. You are too busy. Do it tomorrow. Watch that thought. That thought itself is the mind trying to put you back to sleep. The mind is a survival mechanism. It is designed to solve problems in the outside world. It is very good at building bridges, calculating mathematics, fixing engines. But when it turns inward, it creates chaos, because inside there are no problems to solve. There is only a mystery to live. The mind tries to solve you. It says, you are depressed, let's fix it. You are lonely, let's find a solution. And its solutions always create more problems. The witness does not try to fix, the witness shines a light. Imagine a room full of snakes. You are in the dark and you are terrified. You are trying to fight the snakes with a stick, but you cannot see them. You are hitting yourself. You are hitting the walls. You are exhausted. Then someone brings a lamp. What do? Do you still fight the snakes? No. You look, and in the light you see that the snakes are just ropes. They were never snakes. They were just ropes lying on the floor. But in your fear, in your darkness, you projected life onto them. You created the poison. This is what happens when you witness your mind. You see that your problems are just ropes. Your insecurities are just ropes. Your guilt is just a rope. You don't need to kill the rope. You just need to see it. And seeing is enough. The fear vanishes immediately. You put down the stick. You laugh. A great laughter arises from your belly. My God, you say, I have been fighting ropes for 40 years. This laughter is the beginning of wisdom. A serious man is a sick man. A man who cannot laugh at himself is a man who thinks he is the ego. The ego takes everything seriously. The ego is always offended. The ego is always hurt, but the witness is never hurt. How can you hurt space? You can throw a spear through the sky, but the sky is not wounded. You can burn a fire in the sky, but the sky is not burned. You are the sky. Your thoughts are just clouds. Black clouds, white clouds, storm clouds, rain clouds. They come, they go. The sky remains untouched. This is the truth of who you are. Sat Chit Ananda. Truth, consciousness, bliss. But you have identified with the clouds. You grab a black cloud and say, this is me, I am sad. You grab a white cloud and say, this is me, I am happy. And because clouds always change, you are always in turmoil. You are a leaf in the wind. To wake up from the collective dream, you must stop being a leaf. You must become the wind. You must become the space in which the wind blows. This requires practice, not the practice of a gym, but the practice of remembering, smarana, remembering yourself. Again and again you will forget. You will get lost in a conversation. You will get lost in a movie. You will get lost in a worry. It is okay. Do not judge yourself. Do not say, I am a bad meditator. That is just the mind judging again. Simply notice, I was lost. And in that very noticing, you are back. You are found. The moment you realize you were asleep, you are awake. That split second of realization is the diamond. Cherish it. And as you practice this, something shifts in your relationships. This is vital, because we do not live in caves. We live with people, and people are the greatest mirrors. Usually your relationships are based on need. I need you to love me so I can feel good about myself. I need you to behave this way so I don't feel insecure. This is not love. This is commerce. This is using the other person as a drug. And when they don't give you the drug, you hate them. You call them evil. But when you are a witness, when you are resting in your own being, you do not need the other to fill you. You are already full. You are overflowing. Then you move towards the other, not to take but to share. Your love becomes a gift, not a demand. And when love is a gift, it is free. It has no chains. You don't possess the other. You don't say, you belong to me. You say, I am grateful that you are here. Let us dance together for a while. And if they leave, you do not collapse. You may be sad. Sadness is natural. Sadness is beautiful. But you are not destroyed. Your foundation is within you, not in the other. This is the only way to end the war between the sexes, the war between parents and children, the war between nations. As long as you are a beggar, you will fight for the crumbs. When you become an emperor, and awareness makes you an emperor, you stop fighting. You start giving. And the paradox is, the more you give, the more you have. The well of the divine is bottomless. But society does not want you to know this. Society wants you to be a beggar. A beggar is a good consumer. A beggar buys things to feel happy. A beggar votes for politicians who promise safety. A beggar follows priests who promise heaven. An emperor does not need your products, your politics, or your priests. He is free, and freedom is dangerous to the establishment. That is why they killed Jesus. That is why they poisoned Socrates. That is why they try to silence anyone who speaks the truth. Not because these men were evil, but because they were awake, and their wakefulness was shaking the foundations of the sleeping asylum. You are living in an asylum. Look around you. People are running after things that do not matter, hurting each other for illusions, destroying the earth for pieces of paper called money. Is this sanity? No. It is collective madness. And to be sane in an insane world, you must step out of the collective mind. You must find your own individuality. Individuality is not personality. Personality is what was given to you by others. Your name, your religion, your education, your manners. That is the mask. Persona means mask. Individuality is what you brought with you when you were born. Your original face, the face you had before your parents were born. To find God, you must drop the personality and find the individuality. You must drop the Christian, the Hindu, the Mohammedan. You must drop the American, the Indian, the German. These are just labels on the cage. You must fly out of the cage. And the wings are awareness and love. Awareness takes you inward, love takes you outward. They are the two wings of the same bird. You cannot fly with one wing. If you only have awareness, you become dry, you become a desert. You may be peaceful, but you are dead. This has happened to many monks in the past. They escaped the world, but they lost the juice of life. If you only have love, but no awareness, you become lost. You become sentimental. You become attached. You create suffering for yourself and others. This happens to the poets, the lovers. They have the juice, but they have no direction. You need both. You need to be a Zorba and a Buddha. Zorba loves the earth. He dances, he eats, he loves, he sings. He is rooted in the body. Buddha sits under the tree. He watches, he is silent, he is the sky. I want you to be Zorba the Buddha. Let your feet be firmly on the ground, enjoying the beautiful gifts of existence. This world is not a punishment, it is a celebration. God created this world out of joy, out of play. Layla, don't reject it, don't call it Maya, and run away. If you run away from the world, you run away from the Creator. Taste the food, smell the flowers, touch the hand of your beloved. This is prayer, but don't get lost in it. Keep your head in the stars. Maintain your witnessing. When you eat, be the witness of the eating. When you dance, be the witness of the dancing. When you make love, be the witness of the energy merging. Then the ordinary becomes extraordinary. Then the profane becomes sacred. Then the marketplace becomes a temple. This is the integration. This is the wholeness. And holiness is nothing but wholeness. To be holy means to be whole, to be complete, to accept all of yourself, your darkness and your light, your body and your soul, your silence and your song. If you are resonating with this vision of the whole human being, I invite you to click the join button. Join our community of Zorba the Buddhas. Let us create a space where we can be both wild and silent, both earthly and divine. And do not forget, we have prepared books that go into the deepest details of these techniques. You can find them in our bookshop. A book can be a seed. If you plant it in your heart, it can grow into a great tree of wisdom. Now, we must address one final crucial obstacle that keeps you from living this truth: the fear of death. You cannot truly live if you are afraid of death, and you cannot find God if you are afraid of death, because God is both life and death. The mind fears death because the mind is time. The mind lives in the past and the future. Death is the end of time. Death is the end of the mind. But you, the real you, the witness, has never been born and will never die. Think about it. Can you remember your birth? No. Can you experience your death? No. You can only experience being. You were there before the body came. You will be there after the body goes. You are the eternal traveler. You change bodies like you change clothes. Why be afraid of changing clothes? When you witness your fear of death, you realize it is just the ego screaming. The ego knows it is temporary. It is a house of cards. It is trembling because the wind is blowing. Let it tremble. Let it fall. When the ego falls, you don't die. You are reborn. You realize your immortality. And once you know you are immortal, all fear vanishes. What is there to fear? No one can destroy you. Fire cannot burn you, water cannot drown you, sword cannot cut you. You are consciousness itself, and with this fearlessness, you can walk into the darkest shadows of the world and bring light. You can look into the eyes of a murderer and see the sleeping God. You can look at the wars and see the nightmare of children. You stop reacting and start responding. Your response comes from a place of deep peace, and peace is the only power that can stop war. You think politicians will stop war? They create war. You think treaties will stop war? They are just paper. Only a peaceful heart can stop war. If every human being becomes a witness, war will become impossible. How can you kill another when you see yourself in him? How can you hurt another when you feel his heartbeat in your own chest? It is impossible. So the revolution I am calling for is not a political revolution. It is an inner revolution, a revolution of consciousness, and it is urgent. The world is on the edge of a cliff. We are destroying nature, we are destroying each other. The old ways are not working. The old religions have failed. The old politics have failed. We need a new man, a new human being, one who is aware, one who is loving, one who is free from the past, one who is not afraid of the future. This new man is you. It is not someone coming in a spaceship. It is you. The moment you decide to wake up, the moment you decide enough, I have slept enough, I have suffered enough, now I want to see. That decision is the spark, and I am here to fan that spark into a fire. Let us burn the old you. Let us burn the fear. Let us burn the shame. Let us burn the conditionings. Don't worry. The real gold will not burn. Only the dross will burn. Only the fake will burn. And what remains, that is God. That is why I said, stop looking for God. You cannot find Him. You can only be Him. But to be Him, you must stop being you, the little you, the ego, the personality. You must become a hollow bamboo. This is a beautiful old story. The flute player needs a hollow bamboo. If the bamboo is full of pulp, full of itself, the music cannot flow. The air gets blocked. Most of you are full of pulp, full of opinions, full of knowledge, full of prejudice. You are solid. God tries to play music through you, but only a dull noise comes out. You must empty yourself. That is what meditation is. The art of emptying, the art of cleaning the bamboo. When you are utterly empty, when there is no me inside, suddenly a song begins to flow. It is not your song, it is His song. Your lips move, but the words are His. Your hands move, but the touch is His. Your eyes look, but the vision is His. This is the ultimate goal, to disappear, to be so present that you are absent, and to be so absent that the divine can be fully present. Then you don't need to ask, where is God? You will laugh. You will say, where is not God? You will see Him in the rock, in the tree, in the dog, in the enemy, in the lover. You will see Him in the stars and in the mud, because you will see with the eyes of the Creator. This is your birthright. Do not settle for less. Do not settle for beliefs. Do not settle for consolations. Demand the truth. Demand the fire, and be ready to pay the price. The price is your ego. The price is your sleep. It is a small price to pay for eternal bliss. We are moving now towards the silence again. Words are useful only to bring you to the point where words are no longer needed. They are a bridge. Once you cross the bridge, you leave it behind. Do not cling to my words. Cling to the experience they are pointing to. Look at my finger, but then look at the moon. In the next part of this journey, we will explore the nature of love deeply. Because if awareness is the king, love is the queen. And without the marriage of the king and queen, the kingdom is not complete. We will look at why your relationships fail, why love turns to hate, and how to find the love that is not a relationship but a state of being. Stay with me. The journey is getting deeper. The water is getting deeper. Do not be afraid to drown, because in this ocean to drown is to live. And now we enter the temple of love. But be warned, the love I speak of is not the love you see in movies. It is not the love of songs and poetry that makes you weak. It is a fire. It burns everything that is false in you. Most people think love is a relationship. They think I must find the right person. They search for the perfect partner, the soulmate. But I tell you, there is no right person. If you are the wrong person, even if you find a God, you will turn him into a devil. Love is not a relationship. Love is a state of being. It is like the fragrance of a flower. The flower does not look for a nose to smell it. It does not say, I will only release my fragrance if a beautiful woman passes by. No, the flower is fragrant. Whether someone passes by or not, it is fragrant in the valley. It is fragrant in the desert. It is fragrant in the crowded market. Its nature is to share. When you are full of silence, when you are full of awareness, a new quality arises in you. You begin to overflow. You don't need anyone to receive it. You just give because you have too much. You are a rain cloud that is heavy with rain. You must shower. This is real love. It does not depend on the object. It depends on the subject. But look at your love. It is a begging bowl. You go to the woman, you go to the man, and you say, give me love. Make me feel alive. Make me feel worthy. And the other person is doing the same thing. Two beggars meeting on the street, asking each other for coins. What can two beggars give each other? Only disappointment. You enter the relationship with great hope, and soon it turns into a battlefield. You fight, you argue, you try to control, you try to possess. Why? Because you are afraid the other will stop giving. You are afraid the supply will be cut off. So you build a cage. You call it marriage. You call it commitment. You call it loyalty, but these are just beautiful words for a prison. Love cannot live in a prison. Love is a bird that needs the open sky. If you catch the bird and put it in a golden cage, you may think you love it, but you have killed it. The bird in the cage is not the same bird that was flying in the wind. Its spirit is broken. Real love gives freedom. Real love says, I love you so much that I want you to be totally yourself, even if that means you leave me. Can you say this? I love you so much that I want you to be free from me. It takes great courage. It takes a heart of a lion. But only this love transforms. Only this love satisfies. When you give freedom to the other, you are also free. If you chain the other, you must hold the chain. You become a prisoner of your own prisoner. I want you to drop this idea of relationship and learn the art of relating. Relationship is a noun. It is dead, it is finished. We are related, it is a full stop. Relating is a verb. It is a flow. It is always new. It is always changing. Today you are loving. Tomorrow you may not be. That is the truth. But you promise, I will love you forever. This is a lie. How can you promise the future? You don't even know if you will be alive tomorrow. A man of truth says, I love you in this moment. Totally, absolutely, but about the next moment, I know nothing. This honesty creates trust. When you pretend to guarantee the future, you create doubt. Because deep down the other knows you are pretending. If you are tired of the lies in your relationships, if you want to learn the courage of truth, click the like button. Let it be a commitment to stop pretending. Now, understand the connection between love and aloneness. Society tells you if you are alone, you are lonely. This is a fundamental misunderstanding. Loneliness and aloneness are not the same, they are opposites. Loneliness is a negative state. It means you are missing the other. You are empty. You are desperate. You are looking for someone to fill the gap. Loneliness is sickness. Aloneness is a positive state. It means you are so full of yourself that you don't need anyone. You are enjoying your own company. You are blissful. Aloneness is health. Only a person who is capable of being alone is capable of love. This sounds like a paradox, but it is the truth. If you can be happy alone, then your love is not a need, it is a luxury, it is a sharing. You go to the other not because you are desperate, but because you have so much joy that you want to pour it into someone. When two people who are capable of being alone meet, their relationship is a dance. It is not a dependency, it is a celebration. They are like two pillars of a temple. They stand apart, they are strong in themselves, but they support the same roof. If they stand too close, the temple collapses. You must keep a little distance in your love, a little space. As the poet Khalil Gibran says, let there be spaces in your togetherness. Don't try to merge so much that you lose your individuality. Respect the other as a God. Respect the other as a universe. You can never fully know the other. The mystery always remains. But you try to know everything. You check the phone, you check the pockets, you ask where were you, who were you talking to. This is not love, this is policing. This is fear. Drop the fear. If the other leaves, let them leave with your blessing. Be grateful for the moments you share. Do not be bitter. Bitterness shows that you were clinging. If you can love without clinging, you have learned the greatest lesson of life. Because everything in life is temporary. Not just people, your body, your youth, your money, your fame. Everything comes and goes. If you cling, you will suffer. If you flow, you will enjoy. This flowing quality is what I call the river of consciousness. The river does not cling to the banks. It touches them, it nourishes them, and it moves on. It is always moving towards the ocean. Your love should be a river moving towards the ocean of the divine. And here is the secret. When you love a person deeply, totally, without ego, that person disappears. You no longer see the form, you see the light within. The lover becomes a door to God. This is the Tantra. This is the ancient wisdom, using the energy of love to reach the divine. Usually your energy moves downwards towards biology. That is sex. It is beautiful, but it is the lowest rung of the ladder. If you stay there, you remain an animal. When the same energy moves upwards, it becomes love. It is no longer just biological, it is psychological, it is poetry, it is art. And when it moves even higher, it becomes prayer, it becomes silence, it becomes compassion. It is the same energy. Kama becomes Rama, lust becomes Lord. Do not reject your sexual energy. That is the fuel. If you reject the fuel, how will you start the fire? The religions have done a great harm by condemning sex. They have cut your roots. A tree without roots cannot grow high. I say to you, accept your roots, accept your biology, but don't stop there. Grow. Let the flower of love bloom. If you want to understand how to transform this energy, how to move from sex to superconsciousness, I invite you to join our inner circle. Click the join button. We discuss these delicate matters there where the crowd cannot misunderstand. Now, let us look at the obstacle of possessiveness. Why do you want to possess? Because you are empty, you want to own things, to feel big. You say, this is my house, this is my car, this is my wife. The my gives you a false sense of solidity, but you cannot own a living being. It is violence. To possess a person is to turn them into a thing. You kill their soul, and when you kill their soul, they cannot love you. A dead person cannot love. You are destroying the very thing you crave. You crave love, but your possessiveness kills it. Wake up, see what you are doing. Throw away the chains. Let your woman be free. Let your man be wild. In their wildness, they are beautiful. In their freedom, they are radiant. And if they come back to you freely, then it is a gift. If they don't, then it was never meant to be. You must learn to live with open hands. If you close your fist to hold the water trickles out. If you keep your hand open, the water stays. This openness is trust. Trust in existence. Existence knows what you need. It will give you the right people at the right time, and it will take them away when their time is done. Do not argue with existence. It is wiser than you. And as you practice this non-possessive love, you will feel a great unburdening. The jealousy will evaporate. Jealousy is such a fire. It burns you. It gives you ulcers. It gives you cancer. It is not worth it. Just drop it. It is garbage. Replace jealousy with wonder. Wonder that this person chose to be with you, even for a day. It is a miracle. Why should anyone be with you? You are not that special. The ego thinks, I am the center of the world. That is why you are jealous. How can she look at someone else when I am here? Who are you? Just a speck of dust. Be humble. Humility is the door to love. When you are humble, you are grateful. You say, thank you for your presence. And in that gratitude, love grows. It becomes a giant tree, and thousands of birds can take shelter in that tree. Your love should be big enough to include the whole world. Start with one person, that is the school. But don't stay in school forever. Let your love expand. Love the trees, love the animals, love the strangers. Eventually, you become love itself. You don't love anymore. You are love. It is your radiation. Even if you are sitting alone in a cave, you are loving. The rocks feel it. This is the state of the Buddha. He is pure radiation. And this state is the antidote to all evil. A man who is love cannot harm. A man who is love cannot hate. A man who is love cannot exploit. If we want a world without wars, we don't need more treaties. We need more lovers. We need people who have understood the alchemy of love. You ask me, but Osho, how do I start? My heart is closed. I have been hurt so many times. I understand. You have scars. Every scar is a memory of a time you trusted and were betrayed. So you built a wall. You say never again. But the wall that keeps the pain out also keeps the joy out. The wall that keeps the enemy out also keeps the friend out. You are safe, yes, but you are dead. Is it worth it to be safe and dead? I say, take the risk. Break the wall. You will get hurt again. So what? Pain is part of life. It makes you mature. It makes you deep. A heart that has never been broken is a plastic heart. It has no depth. Let your heart break. Let it break 1,000 times. Each time it breaks, the shell creates an opening. And through that opening, God enters. Don't be afraid of pain. Be afraid of numbness. Be afraid of living a lukewarm life. Live intensely. Love intensely. Cry intensely. Laugh intensely. Be total. And when you are total, you will see that pain and pleasure are just 2 seasons. Summer and winter, they both have their beauty. If you are ready to tear down your walls, if you are ready to feel again, consider supporting this channel with a super thanks. It is a gesture of opening your heart, even in a small way. And remember, we have books that can act as a hammer to break your walls. Visit the bookshop link. Read the words of the masters who have walked this path of fire before you. Now let us move to the ultimate flowering of this journey. We have talked about God, about the shadow, about evil, about love. But what is the glue that holds it all together? What is the atmosphere in which this flower blooms? It is celebration. Religion has become very serious. Long faces, sad eyes, churches that look like graveyards. This is not religion, this is pathology. God is not serious. Look at a dolphin jumping in the sea. Look at a parrot calling in the tree. Look at a child giggling. Does it look serious? No, it is playful. I teach you a religion of celebration, a religion of dance, a religion of laughter. If you cannot laugh, you cannot pray, because laughter is the only thing that stops the mind completely. When you really laugh, a belly laugh, for that moment, there is no mind, there is no time, there is just the laughter. That moment is sacred. I want you to bring laughter back into your spiritual life. Take a joke seriously, but don't take life seriously. Life is a lila, a divine play. You are an actor. Play your role well, with total intensity, but know that when the curtain falls, you go home. Don't get so attached to the role. If you are a king, play the king, but know you are not the king. If you are a beggar, play the beggar. Dance your beggar's dance, but know you are not the beggar. This distance, this humor is freedom. And when you live with this lightness, the evil of the world cannot touch you. It passes through you like wind through an empty window. You don't offer any resistance. And because you don't resist, you don't create karma. You are free. This freedom is your destiny. In the next part, we will explore the concept of surrender, because you cannot force this freedom. You can only allow it. You must surrender to the river of life. We will look at why surrender is so difficult for the ego, and how it is the ultimate door to strength, not weakness. Prepare yourself. We are going to the edge of the cliff, and I will ask you to jump. We are standing at the edge of the cliff, and I ask you to jump. The mind trembles. The mind looks down into the abyss and sees only darkness. It says, if I jump, I will be destroyed. I will be smashed to pieces. And the mind is right. If you jump, you will be smashed. The you that you have built, the ego, the identity, the name, the fame will be shattered. But that you is a prison. Surrender is the key to open the door. But you have been taught that surrender is weakness. You have been taught that surrender means defeat. In your wars, when an army loses, it surrenders. So you think surrender is humiliating. I tell you, surrender is the greatest strength. Only a very strong man can surrender. A weakling cannot surrender. He clings, he is afraid. He holds on to his little branch because he thinks if he lets go, he will fall. But the strong man trusts. He trusts existence. He looks into the abyss and sees that it is not darkness, it is the open sky. He sees that there is no bottom. If you jump, you will not hit the ground. You will fly, you will become eternal. This surrender is not to a person. Do not surrender to me. That is just slavery. Do not surrender to a statue. That is just stupidity. Surrender to the whole. Surrender to life itself. Say to existence, I am yours. Do with me what you will. If you want me to be silent, I will be silent. If you want me to speak, I will speak. If you want me to die, I am ready to die. This total yes is what I call religiousness. The moment you say yes to life, the struggle ends, and life is a struggle only because you are saying no. You are swimming upstream. The river is flowing towards the ocean, but you are fighting the current. You want to go somewhere else. You have your own map. The river has no map. It trusts the slope. It flows wherever the ground is low. I want you to be like water. Soft, fluid, yielding, but water is stronger than rock. The rock is hard, rigid, stubborn, but in the end, the water wins. It wears the rock down into sand. Your ego is a rock. Your surrender is the water. Be water. Float. When you float, you don't swim. You don't make an effort. You let the river take you, and the river is already going to the ocean. You don't need to worry about the destination. The river knows the way, but you are anxious. You ask, what if the river takes me to a waterfall? What if it takes me to the desert? This what if is your hell. Can you trust that the same intelligence that grows the trees, the same intelligence that moves the stars, the same intelligence that beats your heart, can you trust that it knows where to take you? Why are you so arrogant? You think you know better than existence? You think your little plan is better than the divine plan? Drop your plan. Burn your map. If you are ready to burn your map and float with us, click the like button. Let it be a symbol of your trust in the river. This state of floating is what the Zen masters call the great doubt and then the great death. First you doubt your own mind, then you let your ego die, and when the ego dies, God is born. God is not a person. God is the experience of floating. You become weightless. You don't carry any baggage. You don't carry the past. The past is heavy. You don't carry the future. The future is heavy. You just live in this moment, light as a feather, and when you are light, the wind carries you. This is the meaning of Jesus saying, "Blessed are the poor in spirit." He does not mean poor in money. He means poor in ego, empty, weightless. When you are empty, the divine fills you. But you are so full. You are full of your achievements, your degrees, your knowledge. You say, I am a doctor, I am an engineer, I am a priest. You are so heavy with these labels. Unburden yourself. Throw it all away, be nobody. In the world, everyone wants to be somebody. That is the madness. They want to be the president, the CEO, the celebrity. They climb the ladder of success, stepping on each other's heads. And when they reach the top, what do they find? Nothing, just lonely, cold wind. I teach you to be nobody. I teach you to be invisible. When you are nobody, you are everybody. When you are nothing, you are everything. Because you are spacious, you have no boundaries. The flower in the garden is nobody. It just blooms. It doesn't ask for recognition. It doesn't want a Nobel Prize. It just enjoys its own being. And because it enjoys, it is beautiful. Be like the flower. And surrender also means accepting whatever happens as a gift. Even if it looks like a calamity, you lose your job, it is a gift. Maybe existence wants you to move in a new direction. You get sick, it is a gift. Maybe existence wants you to slow down and look inside. If you can see the gift in the calamity, you have learned the secret of alchemy. You can transform everything into gold. But the mind complains. The mind says, why me? Why is this happening to me? The mind is a lawyer for the ego. It always argues against reality. Surrender means you stop arguing. You say, okay, this is what is happening. I accept it. This acceptance is not resignation. Resignation is sad. You say, I can't do anything about it, so I have to accept it. That is weak. Total acceptance is joyous. You say, this is what existence wants, so this is what I want. You align your will with the divine will. Then there is no friction. There is no noise. There is only a deep harmony, a music. You become a flute on the lips of God. If you want to learn this music, if you want to tune yourself to the divine, consider joining our membership. Click the join button. It is a commitment to tuning your instrument. And remember, we have books that are like sheet music for this song. Visit the bookshop. Read the words of those who have played this flute before. Now let us look at the fear that stops you from surrendering, the fear of losing control. You are a control freak. You want to control your life, your wife, your children, your money, even your death. You want everything to go according to your plan. But life is wild. Life is not a machine. It is unpredictable. You cannot control a storm. You cannot control an earthquake. You cannot control love. You cannot control death. The things that really matter are beyond your control. And the things you can control, your car, your house, your bank account, they don't really matter. They are toys. So why drive yourself crazy trying to control the uncontrollable? Relax. Let go of the steering wheel. You think if you let go, the car will crash. But I tell you, you are not driving anyway. The car is being driven by a vast energy. You are just a passenger pretending to be the driver. It is like a small child sitting on his father's lap in the car holding a toy steering wheel. He thinks he is driving. He turns the toy wheel left and the car goes left. He thinks, I did that, but the father is driving. One day the child turns the wheel left, but the car goes right. The child starts crying. The car is broken. The world is wrong. No, the father knows the road. Existence is the father. You are the child. Stop crying. Stop trying to turn the wheel. Enjoy the ride. Look out the window. See the scenery. This is what I call let go. Samarpan. Just let go. And in that let go, you will find a peace that passes all understanding. A peace that no one can take from you. a peace that is not of this world. You ask me, but Osho, if I let go, won't I become lazy? Won't I stop achieving? Yes, you will stop achieving in the worldly sense. You may not become a billionaire, you may not become famous, but you will become happy. What is the point of being the richest man in the graveyard? Alexander the Great died when he was 33. He conquered the whole known world. But when he was dying, he told his generals, "When you carry my coffin to the grave, let my hands hang out." They asked, "Why? This is not the custom." Alexander said, "I want the world to see that I came empty-handed and I am going empty-handed. I conquered the world, but I possess nothing." Do not be an Alexander, be a Buddha. Buddha possesses nothing, but he possesses himself. He is the master of his own being. That is the only true kingdom. And when you surrender, you enter that kingdom, the kingdom of here and now. The mind always wants to be there. Surrender brings you here. Look at this moment. Is anything missing? The birds are singing. The sun is shining. The heart is beating. It is perfect. Why do you want more? Why are you running? Stop running. Sit down. Rest. In the East, we have a word, Vishram. It means rest, deep relaxation. It is the door to God. God is not a workaholic. God is playfulness. God is rest. When you rest in your being, you meet God. Not in the church on Sunday, but in the silence of your own heart right now. But you are guilty. Society tells you, don't just sit there, do something. I tell you, don't just do something. Sit there. Sit until you disappear. Sit until the doer dies. And when the doer dies, action still happens. But it is a different kind of action. It is Wei Wu Wei, action through inaction. The grass grows by itself. You don't have to pull it. The rivers flow by themselves. You don't have to push them. Your life can flow by itself if you get out of the way. You are the only block. You are the rock in the river. Remove yourself. How? By witnessing, by laughing, by dancing, by loving, by surrendering. These are the tools I have given you. Use them. Don't just worship the tools. Use them to carve a statue of light out of your own stone. And if you feel gratitude for these tools, show it, click super thanks. It is a way of saying, I have received something precious. Now, we are approaching the final phase of our journey. We have jumped off the cliff. We are floating. We have surrendered. What happens next? What happens after the ego dies? Transformation, resurrection. You become a new man, homo novus. This new man is not Christian, not Hindu, not Buddhist. He is simply human, but a human who is awake. He lives without fear. He lives without guilt. He lives without the past dragging him down. He lives in a constant state of wonder. Everything is new. Every morning is a new birth. Every evening is a new death. He lives dangerously, because to live safely is not to live at all. He takes risks. He explores the unknown. He is creative. He paints. He sings. He dances. He creates poetry, not for money, but for the sheer joy of creating. He brings more beauty into the world. This is my vision for you. I want you to be creators. I want you to be lovers. I want you to be celebrants. I don't want you to be saints. Saints are boring. They are dead. They are dried up. I want you to be alive, juicily alive, like a ripe fruit, ready to burst with sweetness, and when you are that alive, you are God. There is no other God. Life is God. Jivan is Brahman. So drink the juice of life. Don't hold back. Squeeze every moment until you have extracted all the nectar. And then when death comes, you can say, I have lived, I have loved, I have danced, I am ready. You will welcome death like a friend, because death is just the final relaxation, the final surrender. The wave returns to the ocean, not to die, but to become the ocean. You are the wave, God is the ocean. Surrender is the gravity that pulls you back home. Don't fight the gravity, fall. Fall into love, fall into silence, fall into God. In the final part of this communion, I will give you the ultimate secret, the secret of no mind. Because even after surrender, the mind can linger like a ghost. I will show you how to exorcise the ghost completely, how to live in the pure, crystal clear sky of no mind. Stay with me. The climax is coming. The explosion is near. Don't go away. Where can you go? God is everywhere. You cannot escape, so you might as well surrender. And now we come to the ultimate peak, the Everest of consciousness, the state of no mind. We have surrendered, we have floated, we have accepted, but there is still a ghost. The ghost is the habit of thinking. You are not doing it anymore. But the wheel is still turning out of momentum. It is like a fan. You switch off the electricity, that is surrender, but the blades still turn for a while. The mind has been spinning for millions of years. It will not stop in a second. So what do you do with this momentum? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. If you try to stop the family with your hands, you will only hurt your fingers and you will give new energy to the fan. Conflict is energy. If you fight the mind, you are feeding the mind. Just watch the blades turning. They are slowing down, slowly, slowly. One day they will stop, and in that stopping you will know machine, no mind. No mind does not mean you become a vegetable. It does not mean you become stupid. On the contrary, you become pure intelligence. The mind is not intelligence, it is just a memory bank. It is a computer. It only knows what has been fed into it. It cannot know the new, it only knows the old. It cannot know the present, it only knows the past. No mind is a mirror. A mirror has no content of its own. If a blue flower comes in front of it, it reflects the blue flower. If a red fire comes, it reflects the red fire. It does not say, I prefer the flower or I hate the fire, it just reflects. And when the flower moves away, the mirror is empty again. It does not cling to the image. It does not say to the flower, don't go, you are so beautiful. The mind clings. The mind is like a camera film. Once it takes a picture, it holds it forever. It becomes cluttered. It becomes a warehouse of old photos. No mind is the empty mirror. It is always fresh. It is always ready to respond to the reality of this moment. When you act from no mind, your action is perfect. It is intuitive, it is not calculated. Calculation is always cunning. Intuition is innocent. You ask me, Osho, how can I trust intuition? Isn't it dangerous? It is dangerous to the ego because the ego cannot control it. Intuition comes from the unknown. It comes from your navel, your hara, not your head. The head is a very recent arrival in evolution. The navel is ancient. You were connected to your mother through the navel, not the head. Your connection to existence is through the gut. Trust your gut. When you have a hunch, follow it, even if it seems illogical. Logic is a useful servant, but a terrible master. Logic can build a house, but it cannot build a home. Logic can give you medicine, but it cannot give you health. For the higher things in life, love, beauty, God, logic is useless. You need no mind. And when no mind happens, the final explosion occurs. Satori. Enlightenment, it is not an achievement. You don't become enlightened. You suddenly realize you have always been enlightened. It is a great cosmic joke. You were searching for your glasses and they were on your nose. You were searching for God and God was searching for you. When this realization hits, you laugh. You laugh at the absurdity of your suffering. You laugh at the millions of lives you spent chasing shadows. This laughter is the end of the journey and the beginning of a new life, a life of pure celebration. Now, you don't need to meditate. You are meditation. Walking is meditation. Sleeping is meditation. Drinking tea is meditation. There is a famous Zen story. A disciple asks the master, "What did you do before enlightenment?" The master says, "I used to chop wood and carry water from the well." The disciple asks, "And now? What do you do after enlightenment?" The master laughs and says, "I chop wood and carry water." Outwardly, nothing changes. Inwardly, everything has changed. Before, he was chopping wood with resistance, with boredom, thinking about the future, thinking about his lunch. Now he is just chopping wood. There is only the chopping. The chopper is gone. The wood is gone. Only the act remains, and the act is divine. This is what I want for you. I don't want you to renounce the world and go to the Himalayas. It is too cold there, and you will be lonely. Stay in the marketplace, chop your wood, carry your water, do your job, love your family, but do it with this new quality, the quality of the empty mirror, the quality of no mind. Be ordinary. Everyone wants to be extraordinary. That is the ego's trip. I am special. I say to you, to be ordinary is the most extraordinary thing in the world. To be just a nobody. To be content with just breathing, just sitting, just being. When you are ordinary, you are relaxed. You have nothing to prove. You have no image to maintain. You can take off the mask. And when the mask falls, God recognizes you. Ah, there you are. I have been waiting for you to show your original face. This original face is beautiful. It has no wrinkles of worry. It has no scars of the past. It is as fresh as a dewdrop in the morning sun. If you are ready to show your original face to the world, if you are ready to be ordinary and divine, join our Sangha. Click the join button. It is a gathering of ordinary people who have discovered an extraordinary secret. And remember, the mind will try to come back. It is very cunning. It will enter through the back door. It will say, "Look at you. You are so enlightened now. You are so humble." Watch out. That is the ego coming back in the dress of humility. The ego can wear religious clothes. It can become a spiritual ego. I am the holiest man in the world. That is the most dangerous trap. The sinner is closer to God than the spiritual egoist. The sinner knows he is lost. The spiritual egoist thinks he has arrived. Remain alert, remain awake until the very last breath. And when the last breath leaves your body, don't be afraid. Go with it. Ride the breath out of the body into the vast cosmos. You are not the drop falling into the ocean. That is a fearful way to look at it. You think, I will lose my identity. No, you are the ocean falling into the drop. You become the whole. You have always been the whole. You just imagined you were a fragment. The walls of the house fall down, and the inner sky meets the outer sky. They were never two. The wall was just an idea. Now, as we come to the end of this sharing, I want to give you one final key, a key that opens all locks: gratitude. If you can't meditate, if you can't surrender, if you can't witness, just be grateful. Be grateful for the sun, be grateful for the rain, be grateful for the food, be grateful for the tears, be grateful for the pain. Whatever happens, say thank you. It sounds crazy. Why say thank you for pain? Because pain is carving you. It is making you deeper. It is creating the space for joy to enter. Without the valley, you cannot have the peak. Gratitude transforms the chemistry of your soul. A grateful heart cannot be unhappy. It is impossible. Unhappiness needs a complaining mind. Why is this not right? Why is that missing? Gratitude says, everything is perfect as it is, and in that perfection you dissolve. So let your life be a song of gratitude. Let every breath be a thank you. And when you leave this video, don't just go back to your old habits. Carry this fragrance with you. Walk a little slower, breathe a little deeper, look a little softer. Touch the people you love with a little more reverence. They are gods in disguise. And if you see me in your dreams, don't wake up. Let the dream continue. Because I am not a person. I am a dream of awakening. I am knocking on your door. Open it. I am calling your name. Answer. I am offering you a cup of tea. Drink it. But don't just drink the tea. Taste the silence in the tea. That silence is God. That silence is you. That silence is the answer to every question you have ever asked. So stop asking. Start living. Stop searching. Start seeing. Stop thinking. Start being. The time is now. There is no other time. The place is here. There is no other place. The person is you. There is no other person. Wake up. If this message has shaken you, if it has cracked the shell of your sleep, then my work is done. But your work is just beginning. To support this work, to keep this fire burning for others who are still lost in the dark, you know what to do. The super thanks is your offering to the fire. The subscribe button is your vow to stay awake. And the books in the bookshop link are your maps for the territory you are about to enter. Use them well. But mostly, love yourself. Love yourself wildly, because you are the temple where God resides. If you hate the temple, how can you love the deity inside? Love your body, love your mind, love your madness. Include everything, reject nothing. This is the path of the courageous. This is the path of the lion. Are you a lion or are you a sheep? The society wants you to be a sheep, convenient, obedient, follower. I want you to be a lion, alone, roaring, free. Let your roar shake the earth. Let your freedom shake the heavens. Be a light unto yourself. Apo Dipo Baba. And remember, I am with you. In the silence, I am with you. In the laughter, I am with you. In the love, I am with you. We are not separate. We are one consciousness dancing in two forms. Now go. The marketplace is waiting. The world is waiting. But take the mountain with you into the marketplace. Take the silence with you into the noise. That is the test. That is the proof. If you can be a Buddha in the middle of a traffic jam, then you are truly a Buddha. If you can only be a Buddha in a cave, your Buddhism is very fragile. Test it, challenge it, live it, and never forget you are the one you have been waiting for. Goodbye and hello, because in the world of spirit, there are no goodbyes, only eternal hellos. The dewdrop has slipped into the shining sea. Or is it the shining sea that has slipped into the dewdrop? Does it matter? Just enjoy the slip.